Welcome to the Gaelan Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Gaelan Trombley, on Instagram at Gaelan Trombley, and on YouTube at Gaelan Trombley. Spelling GAELANTROMBLEY. Enjoy the show. On episode 38 of the Gaelan Trombley Show, I have Michael Cashman. Mike is the Plattsburgh Town Supervisor, and I was fortunate to have him come on. Somebody that I've actually have been following from afar for a couple years in his role in our area, and it was fun to have him come into the studio and chit-chat with me about a host of different topics. We kind of talked about, obviously, his role as supervisor and his political history, but we also got into some fun stuff, including Ireland, and both of our loves of coffee. And also he goes into and opens up about his current kind of endeavor that he took on, or event that he took on, as the flight leader of Honor Flight number 27. It was cool to hear his perspective on that. So I hope everybody enjoys episode 38 of the Gaelan Trombley Show. Welcome to the Gaelan Trombley Show. Welcome to episode 38 of the Gaelan Trombley Show. I'm excited today for our guest. I'm just going to call him Cashman, but it is Michael Cashman, who is the Plattsburgh Town Supervisor, and he graciously accepted my offer to come on the show. And Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Or Cashman, welcome. So obviously, I think you gave me a little bit of a shot. We were at an event the other day, and then I just asked you to come on the podcast, and you said yes. So it was very quick, formal, informal, I guess, invitation. But you were actually on my list at one point, so I have a list of people that I want to get to, and it's just more of I don't think I've had a chance to run into you, but here we are. We're doing it.
Here we are, yeah.
So, Mike, so anybody that does not know you, give them a little background on kind of how you got to 2019 Cash Money Cashman.
Sure. So I'll give the thumbnail sketch bio. I'm originally from Massachusetts, actually. Moved up to the region to attend SUNY Plattsburgh as an undergraduate. In fact, side story, I met my wife at freshman orientation. That was kind of a funny little thing. She's from Long Island. And had a really wonderful experience as a student, both undergraduate, graduate, and then I was hired by the institution, worked there for about a decade. And so really the greater Plattsburgh region has been my home for nearly 20 years, actually coming up this August. And a couple of years ago, as many people know, I'm now in the town supervisor's role. I was previously on the town council as a council member. And then Bernie Bassett, the former town supervisor, retired. And people were looking around, myself included, going, well, who's going to be the next town supervisor? And someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, I think you should, give it some thought. Loved my job at the college. And I said, I don't really think it's for me. And that person encouraged me to talk to three of my best friends. And the first person I talked to, obviously, was my wife. And I thought one of three things was going to happen. One is that she was going to either put arsenic in my coffee and take out a good insurance policy. The other was she was going to move back home with her parents. Or the third was just kind of this big question mark. And it was the third. And she said, no, I totally think you should do it. So I jumped all in.
So how long have you been supervisor at this point?
I'm wrapping up my fourth year. It's 4-year terms. So my first term. Yep.
So this will be, you're going back into basically your second election.
Yes. For this November, I'm getting prepped for a second run for my second term, which will start in 2020.
So when you went 4 years ago, you ran 4 years ago for the position.
Correct.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were appointed or if Bernie had left early or something like that. So how was that? Because obviously I've never run for anything, but how is the campaigning portion of it? Because obviously local politics is way different than national or federal, but what's your experience with kind of politicking locally?
Sure. So I had previous experience because I had run for the town council, but I would say that this region is very supportive of people that take the time and energy to get on their doorstep, to engage with them and to listen to them. My mantra for politics is you have to listen, you have to learn so you can lead. And not being from the region originally, I wasn't sure how I would be received. I'm not from the North Country. I'm not a native. I'm a transplant. And I was really appreciative of the faith that the folks gave me when I became a council member. So when I ran for town supervisor, I really wanted people to understand that this was something that I would consider and do consider a full-time job. I was averaging about 39,000 steps a day when I was campaigning. I made it a full-time job. I went down to quarter time. And then, once I got elected, I left the college. So the only job that I have is the Plattsburgh Town Supervisor. And I try to make it to as many public events, doing things like this. To me, it's not about myself, but it's about being able to engage with the community and continuing that opportunity to listen, to learn, and take those and to fold them into opportunities to lead within my current role.
Yeah, I see you at every event, whether in person or in the paper or on Facebook or wherever it may be. Now, I'm assuming a lot of those events, they're probably, some are mandatory that you go to, just kind of being the face or the position of that you're in or to represent the town. I'm sure a lot of them are just things that you go to for just on your own, more if you want to go to it versus have to go to it. And I'm sure it's kind of probably a cool thing to go to. I'm sure it gets repetitive in aspects of it, but I think a lot of it is you do get to see a lot of people in a lot of different groups and kind of see the good that the area is doing. Mm-hmm. Like in a normal week, how many events do you think you go to?
That's a really tough question, only because every season kind of has different types of events and activities. I average probably 65 to 70 hours a week of work. I go to town hall every single day. There by 8, usually wrap up by about 5. We have our board meetings on Thursdays, so those are some extended hours. And then there's all the community events and activities. Saturdays and Sundays are also work days. In your field, that to do your business, you need to get out there. You need to be accessible. One of my favorite things that I still do, and it's something that, we all do, but it has a different flavor for it now, is my wife and I have gone food shopping together for nearly 20 years, right? You get together, you make the list, you go out, and it's just a daily routine. We go to Hannaford's. It's, no secret. And by the time we get to the end of the produce section, usually I'm engaging with 2 or 3 people that have come up to me and said, hey, I read this in the newspaper, or I've got this thought or feeling, or, what do you think about this? Can you help me out? And then by the time we get to the frozen food, I've usually even engaged with a handful of people, and I really enjoy that. And Olivia has really kind of given me the space to do that too. There was only one time that I really felt bad for her. Last summer, actually, we went in just for ice cream. So we beelined it to the ice cream section, and she's holding in her hand, and someone comes up and goes, Supervisor Cashman, can I ask you a couple of questions? Yep, okay. And we just get engaged in this really great conversation, and in the corner of my eye, I can see Olivia going, we have to go. The ice cream is melting. I mean, we were in the aisle for nearly 20 or 30 minutes. It was a great conversation, and I just really appreciate her patience and all of that, because it becomes a family business.
Yeah, and did she do a lot of campaigning with you?
She's the type of person that really never seeks the limelight. She's the type of person that, the line is, you're the public servant, I'm their part of the family member. She helped with mailings, and she helped, drive when I was out hitting the streets and things like that. And she continues to go to various community events with me. But I've always told her that, she should never feel as though that she needs to be at an event or activity, because she's not the person that's chosen to be in the public light. Yeah, and that's
I'm kind of in this not anywhere close to you. I think you're on a different level because there's only one of you. There's only one town supervisor. But from a real estate perspective, I know a lot more people now. Mm-hmm. So we talked about going to the grocery store. Yep. Sometimes I try to go off hours just because I know I kind of want to I have stuff going on and it's tough. And my wife also knows quite a bit of people, but we're in different kind of spheres. Sure. A little bit. So sometimes absolutely. It can be, or it might just be, she just leaves me and kind of keeps going and picks me back up on the way out. But part of it is I do like talking to people because I like people, I like engaging with people. But do you ever find that it's a little too much at times, or do you really embrace it, or is there times where you're like, man, I just wish I could almost go incognito for a few Because, I mean, you're obviously a face that people recognize now.
Sure. I think anybody that tells you that they love their job 100% of the time is just outright lying, or they're disconnected from reality. What I can confidently say is that I love 90% of my job. I strive for 95. And I always allow for a 5% that, there's always things that we just don't like doing, for whatever reason. And I don't have many vices. You and I have had some other conversations at other activities and stuff. I love coffee. I drink coffee all day long. My other vice is I love to work. I really am a workaholic. When I worked at the college, I used to go to as many student activities and campus events, and was really trying to be there for, that to me was kind of my constituent base, because I used to work with student government, and to try to role model the behavior and the expectations and being involved. And, community service, it was a huge pillar of my life as I grew up with my family, but also as an undergraduate and graduate student. But one of the things that I learned during my graduate program is I have a counseling degree, and you have to be mindful to give yourself some of that mental space to decompress, to have some wellness time. I'm not perfect. I've become more conscious of that. And every once in a while, I'll take that Saturday or Sunday and just really try to unwind. But I also recognize that sometimes things pop up that you just have to kind of push through and be there no matter what the subject or the issue is. Yeah,
and I think what you said before, I'm kind of the same. My two vices are probably the same as yours. It's probably coffee and working. and when you talk about, I like what you said, the 90% thing, because I say a lot to people when they ask, I'm like, I love what I do, but again, it's never 100%. There's always times, even like working here, in an office setting, like I love talking to people, but there's times I stress out because I'm having a conversation with somebody that walks in or another agent or someone that works here, and I got a laundry list of things I have to get done, and all of a sudden, like even before this, I had stuff I needed to get done. I didn't get it done, so now here I am going into the weekend. That stuff is like the very minor stuff that bothers me, but it's like the percentage stuff, but it's there is stuff I don't like about the job, and part of it, sometimes I wish I could just shut everything down and just allow myself to just grind through, but it's sure. And then we talk about, like, if you're in the people industry, there's people you like, people you dislike, or people you kind of have to tolerate. I don't have a lot of enemies, but there's times that it's like, oh man, I got this client, or maybe someone's complaining about an issue that shouldn't have happened, but it does. And then, so there's always like little things like that. But I think the reason, because I work a lot too, but I find that working, luckily for me, like working is like a hobby of mine, and doing long hours, and even the podcast, to me, there's a portion of this that is fun. There's a portion of it that's obviously work related, but I enjoy doing it. That's why I'm here. Yesterday I had Jordan with me most of the day, who's works with me here. Like, it was a long day. My first thing was at 7. I got home at 8:30, but that's, to me, it was fun. I had a blast all day long, and I met a lot of cool people. But I think that it kind of keeps me going. And I think for you, like, obviously work-life balance. So one, and I think your wife is Olivia, you said, right?
Yep.
And I think Olivia and Jean are probably very similar, and I'm sure she's very independent and allows you to, long hours where she doesn't, complain that, hey, you're not there at night, and you kind of have your space to, do what you want to do, or because you're obviously in a position too that you're trying to probably squeeze as much out as you can as your position and out of your job description. So what do you find, I guess, with like a work-life balance between you and her and other stuff? You said decompressing. Because one thing I don't believe I struggle with it, but I think it's a stigma with people when you work a lot that all you do is work and don't have, but I think what people, I don't know if you've run into this, but that when you try to tell people that you like working 60 to 70 hours a week, that they think you're crazy.
Oh, I definitely get that. I would agree with you. And I think there's a certain perception in reality. If the perception is that you're on all the time, people just see you as that person, that you're just grinding through it. You're constantly on. I mean, you kind of asked earlier, are there a lot of events that I have to be at versus the ones that I just go to? There are events that I get invitations for, and I can't make it because it doesn't fit into the schedule, but so many more events I want to be at because I just enjoy it. I mean, our community has some really phenomenal things going on, and a lot of times they're in conflict with one another. And the way that I've always approached it is, if I get an invitation to an event and there's another event going on at the same evening, I don't try to just go to be seen. I know there's a lot of politicians that do that, and not to judge for them, but the way that I look at it is, if I'm going to go to something, I want to try to go to that. I want there to be a value added from the experience, not just to be seen as a face in the crowd and have the photo op and stuff. That's not to say that I don't go to several events in a day or an evening, but I really want to make sure that there's an experience to be had from that. Going back to the connection with Olivia, my wife is a veterinarian, and she runs her own business. And what she does is, as a veterinarian, a lot of nurses do per diem work. What she does is she goes in and works with veterinarians all over the North Country to fill in various shifts, to help run their offices for someone that may be on maternity leave, vacation, needs some support. And she does that all the way from here, all the way down to Glens Falls. And how that came about is, a number of years ago, my stepfather was actually dying of brain cancer. And my mother, as his primary caregiver, is also a caregiver for my grandmother, who's in her 80s. And Olivia turned to me and said, I'd like to do something different professionally. I think there's a need here, but I can also provide some support for your mom by kind of expanding the region and stuff like that. So sometimes we're like two ships in the night. People will often ask, where's Olivia? And I'll say, she's working. And there's a judgment factor there. Oh, well, how come she works so much? So as two people, two professionals, I think if you're in the professional realm, there's a lot of judgment for how many hours we put in. But I think our age group, too, also feels the stress of all of our responsibilities, family, house, mortgage, car payments, student loans, saving for our future, whatever it is. And I think our work ethic just is something that we live and breathe every day.
Yeah, and that's what I get. I get a lot of people that think that, when I get home in a perfect world, I have two young kids. In a perfect world, I would want to hang out with them all day long. Yep. But I also know that my wife stays home with both kids. So especially now on maternity leave, that she'll get back into working. She does massage therapy. But right now she's off not doing that. So I look at a position that I'm working to support my family and also trying to set up my future, where when my kids get a little bit older, they get into school, they get into more activities, I now can take the time because I've been able to grow a business or leverage people around me that can help me out when I want to go on a trip with them or I want to take a day off to go to their school, function. I know that if I don't put in a lot of the effort now, I'm not going to see it on the end. And I'm very much an all-in kind of person, where I try my best to, if I'm working, I'm trying to work. Like my Monday through Friday, if I can cram as much into my Monday and Friday, and I know I can spend weekends with the kids, or if I can take off Wednesday, I got done like semi-early for me, which was probably like 5:30, but I spent 5:30 to 10:30 with the kids at like a family function barbecue, and I don't even think I had my phone on me. Like it was just hanging out, took the night off, doing the kid thing, but I try to put everything I can into one side and everything I can into the other. So I try to squeeze out as much as I can in that given task or field every single day. But like I said, there's always a negative connotation when they're like, well, you're getting home at 8, 9 o'clock. And I get it, but it's not, there's no way I'm going to be able to move our family forward or get set up ourselves in the future if I just, to me, work bare minimum and kind of, not put as much into it and just kind of float through. And all of a sudden I'm going to be floating through for 20, 30 years, the same level, where if I'm constantly putting all this time and effort and energy when I'm young and can do it and have the energy to do it, then I'm going to see the dividends down the road and the payout. But, there's times I'm sure if my wife would be like, I don't know where he is, he'll be home later tonight. He's off doing whatever at a function or a networking event, or, last night, listing appointment that started at 7 o'clock at night. Like it happens. But, so for you, So yeah, the work-life balance, but I want to go back into how did you went to Plattsburgh State, you were in counseling, you said?
So my undergraduate degree is in speech communications, which is basically public relations and marketing.
Okay.
So that was my undergraduate degree. And then I had the opportunity to stay for my graduate work, and I got a counseling degree. Yep.
So from there, did you have, I mean, you obviously got into as a town councilor, but like what piqued your interest to get into, I say politics, but I think at the local level, it's a lot more, like you said, kind of community involvement and volunteering than it is becoming like a career politician. But how did you get the interest to get into politics?
Sure. So my family really taught me the lessons to serve others. From my aunt who was, her faith meant a lot. I spent a lot of time at her church, church bazaars and, in various events and activities, to my grandfather, who was a veteran and taught me, so many life lessons. In fact, I lived in a home where my grandmother and my grandfather lived in an in-law apartment below us. So you know that I'm the favorite grandchild. It also is helpful that my grandmother and I share the same birthday. But these individuals really inspired me by their example to give back to others. A quick funny story. When I was in high school, I ran for student body president. And I came home, and my grandfather worked the night shift. And I came in, and I was super excited, and we always used to actually share a cup of coffee and Oreos when I came home from school. And he goes, "What are you so excited about?" And I said, "I'm going to run for student body president." And he goes, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Well, go upstairs and do your homework." He goes, "I'm going to have something for you in about a half hour or so." I said, "Okay." So I run upstairs and start my homework. And a little while later, he calls for me, and I go running downstairs. And I remember as clear as day, all scattered on his kitchen table are these 8x10 pieces of paper. And they've got nickels, dimes, quarters, pennies, all like on top of them. And I'm like, "Oh, what is that?" And, like written in the center has these different slogans, and it's "Vote Cashman. It makes sense. Vote Cashman for change." And my grandfather had basically come up with like the first campaign strategy for that election. I lost. And I funded a lot of kids' interest in getting snacks at the school store during that campaign. But that was kind of my first kind of, jump into quote unquote politics. But fast forward to coming up here to college, I got involved in a number of groups. I was involved in a co-ed service group. I did actually about 1,000 hours of community service in the 4 years that I was an undergrad. I don't say that to break my arm, pat myself on the back, because everybody has hours and things that they do, right? That was just one of the things that I got really, really involved with lots of the nonprofit organizations. And in fact, there was a gentleman, Michael Mannix, who was the executive director before John Bernardi of the United Way. He befriended me as an undergraduate, and he invited me to serve on what's called the allocation committee. And it's that committee that makes the determination where the dollars go from the annual drive for the United Way. And it was a great exposure to understand the needs and the interests in the face of this community. And it inspired me to want to get involved, even more. And when I was a student, I had the opportunity to once again run for student body president. I ran for the Student Association president. I won. I actually am the only person to serve twice in that capacity. And what inspired me and humbled me was to know that I was going to represent, about 5,000 students. And a lot of times I would be the only student in the room, and that I had to work really, really hard to make sure that I was representing the students across the spectrum. And what I mean by that is some students would always agree with the administration, some students would never agree with the administration, and then you had the people in the middle. And I felt it was my responsibility to actively listen to try to provide, a larger sense of what was going on the campus as we tried to make some decisions and determination. In fact, I became the student body president at the same time that John Etling, who is the current president, and we're in his remaining days as president of SUNY Plattsburgh. He served for 15 years, and we've held on to a unique relationship. And he and I did not always agree, and he and I still don't always agree. But I learned a philosophy that I've carried forward to this day, that you don't have to agree with someone to respect them or listen to them, and you can still serve them too. So
yeah. So the student body or the SA president that you were, so that would have ended, I mean, roughly about the age of 22, right? In college.
Yep.
Okay.
Around that time.
And then, because maybe I'm wrong on this, from what I'm followed, I mean, obviously being a town supervisor, how old are you now?
I'm 38.
Okay. So, I mean, fairly young to have, I think, of kind of a leadership position for, I mean, most, I would say maybe council, being kind of younger, but are you the youngest town supervisor?
I am, Plattsburgh? And I was actually surprised by that. But I'm the youngest ever elected town supervisor in the town of Plattsburgh. I was elected at 34, and some people believe that it's in Clinton County, and you can kind of mushroom that out. But to me, I think it's neat. But what inspires me more is that there was a trust by folks to say, hey, we're going to give this person a shot. Someone that, again, that's not from the area originally. Maybe he's a little young. And to me, the way that I'm trying to respond is through accessible leadership. I don't need to have the best idea. I have a responsibility to find the best idea or ideas and bring those to the table. Yeah.
And I guess on kind of I'm not a big fan of like politics when it comes to, the bipartisan and people fighting and I have my views and I lean different ways in different categories. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to find a politician that checks all the boxes. So you kind of pick the one that I think covers what you feel strongly or most strong about. But from like a local standpoint, I mean, there's a lot of people that I get along with very good and I think are doing great things. And I don't think it comes down, and I don't know it well enough, but I see a lot of people from local political is more of serving the community for like as almost like a volunteer, whether you're paid or not, but you're there more to move a region forward versus trying to argue over certain, I guess, national kind of politics. I'm sure you have your views on the national political side, but I'm sure you guys are very is it bipartisan when you work together? Bipartisan when you work together. I'm sure there's not again, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm sure a lot of you guys get along well enough where politics don't really kind of rear their head. I'm not sure how it votes. Like, obviously the legislature has Republican, Democrat, and everything, but I don't think it would be as strongly opposed as you start going maybe down to the state level and then the federal level.
Yeah. Well, going back to this, and let me just ask you a really pointed question. Do you and your wife agree 100% of the time?
We're completely different.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, in politics or just in life?
Just in life.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we have arguments,
right? And that's a really natural thing. So, earlier I said kind of that philosophy of, you don't have to agree with somebody to serve them. And a lot of times I have constituents come in and, they have a concern, and we sit down and we're chatting, and I'll say, well, do you agree with your kids 100% of your time, your spouse, your whatever? And they're like, no. I said, well, this is my promise to you, okay, is I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to listen to you sincerely and empathetically, and at the end, we may not agree, but I will do, my darndest to try to find a solution for your problem or concern, or to identify some resources. And nothing's off the table until it's off the table. And I think that's what really becomes helpful here at the local level. That, for you to kind of get involved in it, you got to wear a jersey in a sense. And there's Democrats and Republicans and conservatives and working families, and we can get on the whole list. If you really start to strip away kind of my thoughts and feelings on a number of things, I consider myself to be very complex. And at the local level, it goes back to the kitchen table issues. It goes back to the fact that if I make a dumb decision, and I'll own it, we all make dumb decisions. You could bump into me in Hannaford's, right? And you're going to pull me aside, and you're going to give me some of your thoughts and feelings on that. As you move up into the federal level, when's the last time you ran into, your federal senator? When's the last time you ran into your member of Congress? It might happen from time to time, but you don't see them on a regular basis. At the local level, there is more responsibility to engage those folks. And some people biff it, right? Some people get into these positions and they believe their own press clippings, and it's all about the title and it's all about the perceived power. Folks, the power is in the people. There are terms, and to pivot just for a second, I believe in term limits too.
I was going to ask you later about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I believe in term limits. I've told people right from the start.
And this is all the way through to from local to federal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I agree. Same.
Absolutely. So I believe in 10-year term limits, okay? A lot of times you hear people say, in 10 years from now, we're going to achieve X, Y, and Z. It's been proven pretty scientifically that for things to germinate an idea, and then for it to kind of gain roots and then kind of grow and see it happen, usually takes about a decade. Okay, so that's why I think 10 years is appropriate. I will not run for town supervisor for more than 3 terms. That will put me past the 10 years just by a little
default,
bit by default.
Yeah.
But I don't see being the Plattsburgh Town Supervisor as a career. Mm-hmm. Some people have done it, and I'm not here to make judgments of anybody that has done it on the local or state or federal level, but my personal philosophy is I believe that's how you stay connected with the mission more of serving people.
Well, and again, going kind of back in history, was it George Washington that was the one? He obviously said don't get into political parties, but I think wasn't he the one too to talk about term limits and not to have career politicians? Because politics back in the day was like, Farmer Jones was going to go to Washington or Philadelphia back in the day, run his however many 4-year term, or even a year or two, however the term limits were back then, to go back to the farm, and someone else would go back. And it was more of, you're going to go serve your constituents that are local, go do your thing, come back, and then kind of keep having change. Yeah. I always look at, the fact that we have politicians that have been in for 20, 30, 40 years, and they've known nothing else. And don't get me wrong, that's a lot of time. Experience matters. They've seen a lot. They've seen change within the landscape over decades. But at the end of the day, you need new ideas. And I think because there is so many people that by putting someone else new in there and having the votes of people, the democratic system of getting people in, to me, you hear a truer representation of voices when there's different people that go in, because you're not picking the same person by, like, all of a sudden you're like, we're going to keep voting the same guy or gal in, and they just get absorbed in, obviously, to me, like, the lifestyle and stuff of living or in Washington or living down in New York State or at the Assembly or the Senate down there, that I think change is good. The fact that the president only gets 2 terms of 8 years total, and they're in theory the most powerful person in the world, but they have a term limit. Like, I think Congress should. What do you think about Supreme Courts, like, with lifetime? Because that's another one. Should they be on for life at that point?
Sure. I mean, I think that's a little bit more complex because the 3 branches really, they're equal branches, and the design to have something that can really be the filter to the political process. So yeah, I mean, I that's not an area that I've given as much consideration about, more so because they're not elected, they're appointed.
Yeah.
But I do believe that all elected positions should, have term limits. And the other part to it is, I've been part of many organizations over the years where there hasn't been a formal rule on the book, but I think there's an opportunity to begin to role model that behavior, to make it an expectation. I really like organizations that create pipelines too. It's different with elected because, right, the public could say, well, I don't want this person to be quote unquote next in line. I don't think anything should be defined as a guarantee. I think that's dangerous too. But I think that you have a responsibility to be encouraging the next generation, of leaders behind you. When I first got elected, I was about 30 years to the next youngest person in a lot of rooms. And I looked around and I was like, wow. I mean, the first event that I went to, someone asked me if I was interning for somebody. I was just freshly shaven, had a little less weight on me. And
this council?
Yeah.
Town council?
Yeah. And, it's just like, geez, and to me, you need to have a government that is multi-generational. You need to have, the whole gamut of people that represent your community, men and women, and I could go along the laundry list. But interesting fact, it took over 230 years for two women to be duly elected and represented on the Plattsburgh Town Board. And it's Meg Lefebvre and Barb Hebert. And that's just happened in the last couple of years. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. But it's also sad too. So each day we have an opportunity for progress. And, you were talking about how things kind of change. My grandfather was kind of, my Sherpa, my yogi in life, and he had a lot of these things called Papa-isms. And one of the sentiments that he always said is, change is the only thing that's constant in life. I know a lot of people look at politics and go, well, the longer we have somebody in office, that their seniority, will be able to bring more money to the region and more of that. Yeah, but if we create an even footing for everybody, then we reset the dynamics and people get more likely the things that they need for their constituency.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you start going like, I have views on not electing someone into position just to fill in the void of saying like we've elected, a woman, or elected, when Obama became the first African American, or the first openly gay president, or whatever. Like that will happen in time. I don't like the idea that that's happens just to say that it happened. Like I don't want something like, if the first we have openly gay president, if they're the most qualified to do the job, then 100% I'm voting for that person. Because to me, it's what are they standing for? How are they as a person? I mean, I like Meg is a phenomenal, girl. And the fact that, I would vote for her all day long, because I think that she's heart's in the right place and she wants to come from a position of serving. To be honest, I don't even know your political party, which I guess is fine. You don't have to say it. But I mean, it's the idea that, like, to me, if I went and looked at all the local politicians that I voted for, I don't even know half. I mean, obviously I could probably look on the ballot, but a lot of them I've known personally, or I've seen them at events. And to me, it goes a long way when I can, again, at the local level, I can hear you talk at events. I can go to events and I say, okay, I agree with Mike, right? Maybe I don't know all the stuff you agree with, or we don't agree on everything, but I can see how you carry yourself and your mannerisms and how you approach a crowd of people, and you're well-spoken, and it seems like you have a very good handle on what you should have a good handle on. And I find the same with, like, Billy. I know him a little bit at some events. I think Billy does a great job. And I think there's certain people that I think are in that role because whether or not their politics agree with everybody, I think as long as they're coming from the right place, like you said, of serving, or because not everybody wants to do your job, because there's obviously pros and cons to it. But I think if you come from a position that you give a lot more than I think you take, and I'm sure you would agree with that with most of those people, because even if they're getting paid a small portion, I'm sure they're not getting paid a ton to do the roles that a lot of them are doing, and a lot of it is volunteering, and what do you think on that? I mean, from a position of, I guess, not necessarily financially. I don't think anybody does it financially in politics.
Well, I want to go back to your statement about not going kind of down through like a punch list or a checklist. I agree. I don't think we should be seeking out certain individuals only to fill a category. What I do believe, though, is more people should be encouraged to run. More people should be supported to run, so that their qualifications in the arenas of leadership, community development, areas of expertise. I mean, you can go down the laundry list, can be reviewed by the public for consideration. And I'll be very honest, women, Meg is a phenomenal woman, but over the years, women have been rather dismissed from even being encouraged to get in the arena.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we should just say we need to have more women in politics. We need to have more people involved in the political process and more representation. And the way that I believe we get there is by encouraging good, strong individuals to lean forward and get involved in all those different pockets. But as far as the pay, there are different sectors of, there's the public, there's the private. Anybody that goes into public service should not be doing so with the idea that they're going to get rich. It also gets to the career politicians, though. A lot of people are starting off at pretty low amounts, right? And then they're leaving office as billionaires. So that's kind of questionable.
Yeah.
The way that I look at it, again, is this is my job. This is my focus right now. And actually, in fact, this is the first time in my life that I've not had a second job. And even when I was working at the college, I was a council member. So there was my second job.
Yep.
There was also periods where I was more in an administrative role, but I also taught some classes before, and I could go on and on and on. I think that folks I think there's an opportunity to make sure, though, that you pay individuals for what they're providing in that role. That doesn't mean that it needs to be exorbitant amounts of money. And people put the work in, and if they don't, elect them out. And I want to go more specifically just for one moment, because this has been a soapbox that I've been getting on for a while now. Employees or team members that work for municipalities or county governments and villages and cities, they get the short end of the stick. And you hear all kinds of stories like, well, if it's good enough for government, or, whatever it is, the government attitude of being slackers. I can say confidently and look you straight in the face, I work with a phenomenal team of individuals. And every single day they go into that office at 151 Banker Road, they are trying to do better than the day before. That's not to say that they're perfect. That's not to say that they get it right every single day. But they go in with an attitude of serving the town of Plattsburgh residents and taxpayers. And I could say that for just about any other community. But often what happens, though, is we look at these roles and we go, oh, they're making too much and they have too many benefits. And the way that I put it out there is, do you want the D squad putting in your water infrastructure? Mm-hmm. Do you want the D squad to be working on your roads? Mm-hmm. Do you want the D squad to be, checking the architect and the integrity of buildings that you're going to be walking into? I don't. Mm-hmm. Just like I don't want the D squad teaching kids. I don't know where the fine line of where the salary level is that, breaks that tipping point. But what I do believe we need to do is to have a more honest conversation about recognizing people for the value that they add to our community and pay them in a fashion that is equitable and fair.
The one thing that I always laugh about, because I've had people say that about teachers, like, well, you guys get the summers off, must be nice. And it's like, then go into teaching. I always look at it, if you're complaining about something, like if you're complaining about how much the say transportation department makes at the town of Plattsburgh, then go into that field. If it's something that you think that it's overpaid, overpaid or they make too much, well, I'm sure you're not going to have it complaining if you made too much. You know what I mean? So go into that field if you want. And I agree the same thing. I look at our company here. part of the reason I want to grow and my philosophy on the business is I'm trying to put a lot of money into our company, or I'm trying to put a lot of effort into our company, so when we can provide a platform where people can make a very good salary, because I want to attract the best agents and I want to attract the very best staff. I mean, you met Nicole before we came. I think she's the best of the best in the area, and we're lucky to have her. But it's the same thing. I'm trying to make the future better, so when she can grow with us, that there's no other place that she would want to be, and she can look at it and say, I am the, A squad, or I am the A player, and I'm, taken care of accordingly, and I deserve what I make, and I deserve the position I have, and kind of the pull in the office. When you talk about males and females, this office is probably 80% females, and I rely very heavily on all of them on a lot of decisions, whether they're 20 or whether they're in their 50s. And and it's kind of funny that, yesterday, Jordan was around with me, but she's as smart ass as it comes, but she takes me down a peg at times, when I need it. So I do like that. But, no, I think paying people accordingly 100%, because you get what you pay for, kind of deal.
But as a business owner, I think you also recognize, right, that there's probably always going to be someone out there, though, that's willing to pay a little bit more, mainly because they can. Maybe they have deeper pockets. Maybe they're trying to build their bench. So and the way that I look at it is we shouldn't be holding people back either, right? We should do our best to recruit and retain, but we also should support people to make career decisions or decisions in that trajectory that will allow them to provide, have upper mobility. I've had a couple of people at the town that have moved on to different positions. I don't question their integrity. I don't think that they're any less people, or I was sad to see them move on to different things, but I was happy that they found some additional opportunities. And the way that I look at it is, if you can create a place, a work culture that brings about the best of people, if there's a position, hopefully they become ambassadors for your organization and your company, say, hey, that's a great place to work. You want to check that place out. Or maybe if it's right, they come back to the fold too.
No, I agree. I mean, if anybody ever worked here and all of a sudden 5-10 years from now, they got this unbelievable opportunity, I would not in the slightest, give them any crap. I would actually, like I said, try to support them as best I can, because I'm like, that's a great opportunity. Take it, run with it. And obviously if you can have a very amicable splitting of ways, but it's for the better. And I'm not going to, have sour grapes over anybody that ever leaves the company if they do so in a position where they're getting a better opportunity. 100%. You talked before, or you just mentioned it, about kind of going back a little bit. And again, this is before my time with the organization, but you talked about retaining people to the area. One thing that I feel very passionate about is Adirondack Young Professionals. And I know you, I guess, were the inaugural president of the group.
I was.
And so when did this organization start? And give me some background, because obviously you were there at the beginning.
Yeah. So our group was passed the baton. There used to be a group of individuals that worked on kind of a regional project every year. And they came up with this concept that, and I'm putting it in very simple terms, there was a need for a young professionals group. And a group of us, kind of took the mantle and started to try to assemble an organization that was going to allow it to be sustainable and something that would create points of activation for people to become more involved in the community, and to be able to move forward, but then turn around and provide a hand to the next people coming up behind us. And because if you think about it, a young professionals group, right, is one of the hardest organizations to sustain, because, right, they're having kids, they're having families, they're going from entry level positions to mid level, to business owner. I mean, they're kind of it's the moving up the ladder kind of scenario. So really, the idea of the Adirondack Young Professionals group was that it's an incubator group for leaders of today and tomorrow. And I had the good fortune to serve as the founding president of that group with a dynamic cast of characters, I would say, from multiple arenas in the local region that just said, okay, we're going to put the sweat equity in, and we're going to try to build an organization that allows for young professionals to come together and not just be a drinking group, not be just a social group. And that's not to say that social portions of a young professionals group are important, but we wanted to focus on social. We wanted to focus on networking from the standpoint of, if you're an entrepreneur, that you have an opportunity to find mentorship, that you can connect with other people to bring about business. We wanted people to find people that might assist them in buying their future home or starting a business, and also the service portion of it. And it has become a feeder group even into the Lions Club and the Kiwanis and Rotary, etc. So the point of pride that I really like celebrating every year is the fact that 12 years ago the group started the economic forum, and the reason that group started the forum was a signal to the community at large is, we're not just a group of young professionals getting together to have a good time, is that we want to be involved in larger conversations. And we want to be involved from a standpoint of maybe we have some expertise to offer, or some thoughts and opinions, or we want to be seen as an opportunity or a group or a cluster or a cohort of peers that can be tapped for future opportunities. And that forum, I think, has been one of the strongest means by which it's built some regional credibility by some of the elders of the community. And I don't mean, from an age-wise, but those folks that are the mainstay people in our community that are seen as the movers and shakers of the community.
Yeah, and I mean, you moderated it this year, which was Alternative Energy was the overall title, right?
Yep.
Okay. I remember the topic. I was trying to think of what the actual term was, but it was very well attended. We had solar. We had, the people I invited down from Canada, Fusion.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. There was a multitude of different places, and one guy lives off the grid and does everything kind of self-sustaining, and it's one of the most well attended. I think the other, I missed it on Wednesday. I try to go to every single one I can. They had a really big, it was kind of like their membership drive. Yep. And I know, to be honest, I've been a part of the group now for about 2 years. And one of the best things I've done, and not just for business wise, because it helps, but I have a lot of those people are my really good friends now. And we do a lot of stuff together, whether it's, go golfing, have lunch, go to events here and there, go to concerts. I've had some phenomenal friends there, because one thing I try to do working a lot is I try to kind of mix my social life and work life, and,
Sure.
and luckily this has been a good way to do it. But there are some phenomenal people in that group, and I'm such a big believer on the retaining the young professional part. To me is huge, because I don't ever plan on really moving out of the area. The reason, one, I'm staying in the area because of family, but I've always looked at it as, if I have a skill set, or if I can put in the effort and I can put in the work, how come I don't do that to benefit where I grew up, my neighbors, whether it be older, younger, future generations, leave a footprint on the area that kind of raised me, versus, hey, I'm going to move to a big city with everybody else and keep building that city bigger and bigger and bigger, where I think there's a lot of good people in that organization. And I'm sure 12 years ago when you guys started it, the same thing, where those people have now moved on to, maybe 12 years ago, now they're all, maybe in their 30s and the 40s, and the crew that's, kind of early to late 20s or early 30s that have kind of taken the baton. I'm hoping that most of them stay in the area and that we can kind of keep building. But I'm not on the board or anything, but I try to recruit so many people to that organization. Yep. Pretty much every person that I run into that even remotely would fit in, no matter what the position is, I'm like, guys, you have to go to this event. And I think there's so much good to that event, and I think people get the idea that I got to go. I have to, awkwardly talk to people, and I'm just like, people are going to be pitching me business cards, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody pull a business card out. I think a lot of it's, go unwind at the end of the day, go to some social events to meet new people and kind of expand everybody's network. But when we get a very strong core group of people that hopefully, like you said, can now become the movers and shakers of the future, or our future next 10 to 20 years, we can leave this area better than we found it, which is my ultimate goal, which is why I think you and I have a lot in common. We're obviously in different positions, but I think we're all kind of striving for the same end or North Star. My way down future goal is to try to accumulate a position of maybe, whether it be monetary or even, I guess, status kind of position where I can, reinvest or develop into the community. Because I would love to at some point dump a lot of money back into the community from a position where I can invest in either buildings or organizations or groups or give back to different things. And that's always been something I think I'm striving for in the long term. Not really because I don't care a lot for money as a personal. I'm very kind of low budget. But I think that the fact that I can try to leave this position better, I guess I'm kind of doing it more as like an economic level, which I think in turn and at time will be more of a service level. I don't do it as much now as others do from a service perspective, but I also think too with kids right now, my service is to the little guys that are running around, guy and girl. But what do you think from? Most of those people are probably still around here, right? That you started out with?
Yeah, I would say some have. From the overall organization have moved on to some different things, but yeah, many people are here. And the Adirondack Young Professionals Group does create that opportunity to have a cohort. Think of it this way, from, I don't want to name particular businesses, but for anyone that may be listening, they may be the only young professional in that particular business. Mm-hmm. So that's why the Young Professionals Group is so critical, is it brings folks together outside of the four walls of where they go to work every single day. It provides them a social network, a support network, a professional network, et cetera, et cetera. And there are a number of people still to this day that I know if I picked up the phone, I know I could lean on them, and vice versa. And I'm sure that you can say the same. Mm-hmm. Young professionals, it's not just about the recruitment to get people into the jobs, but it's creating an overall experience and opportunity that people feel great about this community. And I do mean this community as a region, as a great place to live, work, play, and invest. And it goes to what you're saying is investment is both of money, the financial, it's also the time. Mm-hmm. People may not have a lot of money right now, but everybody can volunteer. Mm-hmm. Everybody can volunteer. There's something that you can find a passion or interest and volunteer. And it doesn't need to be hundreds of hours. It could be a couple hours a month. And you can move the needle in this community in ways that you can't even imagine.
What do you think? I would love to hear this perspective from you. What do you think the future of the region is? I'm sure you've thought about it. I'm sure you've visioned it. I'm sure you've had, I have grand visions in my head of what the area is going to look like, especially looking right out this window, and a lot of things I think will happen in my lifetime, but you're in a much better position, I think, and have a much better knowledge base based on obviously the current position. What do you think, or where do you think Plattsburgh's going? Or it just, like you said, regional, not just Plattsburgh, but North Country, Clinton County.
I think the trajectory that we are on is very strong. I think we have a lot to be very optimistic about, but there's always going to be a number of challenges that are in the environment that we have to be aware of. One of our biggest opportunities is the border relationship or the cross-border relationship with Canada. So that's always a fear. What disturbance could be there from getting our Canadian neighbors to come down. I tell folks, one of the things I enjoy most is when I'm out and about shopping myself, and if I see somebody with Canadian plates, I'll often go up to them and say, hey, thanks for coming down and shopping and stuff. What do you hear? And, ask them why they're in the region and pick their brains. And I encourage people to do that because it's a fascinating exercise to learn a little bit more about ourselves. And I have found that there are a lot of communities that kind of doubt what they have for themselves. It takes kind of that outside perspective to go, wow, you have a really beautiful environment. You drive by the lake every day. After a while, you can just be like, oh, that's just a lake, or those are just the mountains, or, whatever it is. I have a friend that's living in Paris, and she has lived all over the world at this point. And she said, no matter where you end up living, a certain portion of the population just becomes a bunch of couch sitters. They'll just sit on the couch and they'll complain about the world going by. Plattsburgh has a lot going on. Doesn't mean that we have everything that we want. No, but we do have arts, and we do have some great outdoor 4-season activities. And one of the things when I hear from people saying I'm bored or there's not enough here, well, do one or two things. Start asking people, and you might find that we do already have it, or be part of the process to get it here. But I think in this instant gratification model that we now live in, people get frustrated that we don't get that store right away, or we don't have that opportunity right away. It does take some time. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, I think we're going in a positive direction. But I'm curious. I mean, what's your worldview? What's your vision for here?
I mean, Plattsburgh. I'm again. This is based off of part of it is watching stuff. So watching like things with the economic development, reading the news, kind of seeing things pop up. My idea, and what I tell a lot of people, is that I think that Plattsburgh only has brighter days going forward. Not to say the past is bad at all, but I'm saying we're going to build and keep improving. The one thing I always tell people, especially because they ask about the housing market and things like that, it's like why do you think we've had how many hotels pop up in the last 10 years, restaurants pop up? Why do you think we've had more, I'm looking out here, they've had a fishing tournament all weekend. Like, you have stuff that it's coming to the area that you didn't see 10 to 15 years ago. And you don't put a Chick-fil-A or a Chipotle or a Hampton Inn or all these, major chains in Plattsburgh, if they do a lot of market research to say, why would we bring something like that to this area? I would be more concerned if we started seeing those businesses leaving. And I haven't seen that in many years. I mean, probably for at least 15, 20 years. So the fact that I'm kind of basing my opinions off of what I see come to the area, I also am basing it off of probably putting faith in guys like you, guys like Gary Douglas, guys and gals that are moving the needle forward from kind of a regional perspective. Like I had, I always forget her name. She's, I think, the VP of Economic Development, she's not next, like basically Gary's right-hand person.
Sue?
Is it Sue? Yes.
Yeah.
So Gary and Sue I did North Country Connections this year. So we did it at the Chamber, and it was a great group of people. And they did kind of an interview or a panel or whatever, and they were talking about it. And the passion those two bring to the table about economic development and all the good that's coming down, there was not, at least in what they had said over the hour, there was absolutely zero pessimism at all. Everything was very optimistic. The fact that Gary was like, hey, I came here 20 years ago. We've made it through the closing of the base. We've made it through the closing of Wyeth. We've made it through the closing of a bunch of different things, through the housing bubble. I mean, all this stuff, and we're still plugging along. And if anything, our position's now gotten stronger than it probably was before, especially at the state level, which is very important for us, and maybe even federal. But I think you kind of look at those people that are in those positions that, again, their sole purpose is to better our community. And I think that, like, the leadership right now, I'm a very limited knowledge on a lot of it. I'm not in the weeds and take a great deal of, this kind of stuff. Yeah, well, but I think that the people that are in there, I feel very passionate about, and I like them as leaders. There's not really anybody that I see that I'm like, oh God, I can't believe that person's in there. They're doing a terrible job. And if they are, they obviously will get they won't get reelected. So, but I think the area with people, and kind of my big model of like local matters, is trying to reinvest back in. There's a reason why all the artwork in here is done by people that I personally know. There's a reason why, that photo right there, Hannah's getting her license right now. She did that. I'm like, this is what I want to do. It's literally a map of Clinton County, which I find, like, you'll see a lot of stuff is just local things in the area. And there's a reason why we're in the train station building. I absolutely love this building. I love part of it is metaphorical. Now that, before I didn't have the window view, but now I have a window view that looks out at the waterfront. I've told everybody that's come in here that I can't wait to be here for my working career, that I can literally watch probably the nicest real estate in our area slowly develop. And I know that you obviously are, is it called the Causeway, or what's the thing just south of the base?
Oh, the jetties?
Is that what it's called? The pier kind of system that you guys are building, like things like that can develop the waterfront. Because we do have such a natural advantage over so many people with the lake and proximity to that, to proximity to Canada, proximity to the mountains. You take someplace in middle of New York, central New York, they don't have that. Maybe if you go down to, maybe the Finger Lakes or something, if you start going, they have a little bit of water and landscape, but you're not getting the Adirondacks, you're not getting Lake Champlain. You have to go to probably Colorado before you really start touching on very similar geographics, maybe a little bit in the Appalachians, but we're at such a crossroads of natural landscape that I think things like that are positive. The fact that we're getting the state's giving money to build up different sectors, the fact we're getting money for the city, the fact that we're getting money from the town, that we're getting people that are giving grants. Obviously, we're making some headway down in Albany because we've gotten grants and I don't know the official term, but we've gotten money given to us to develop the area, which obviously says something. If you have our state capital that has faith that we're now kind of on the map, that's phenomenal.
Well, if you think about it, one of the hallmarks of business, right, is location, location, location. Well, Plattsburgh, the Adirondack Coast, Clinton County, the North Country, however you want to define us, we have that. And some quick, fun little facts that you may not know. Do you know where Wolf Road is down near Albany?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. From exit 37, getting off of exit 37, going down to Consumer Square, and then teeing up through Smithfield Boulevard, we're busier there than Wolf Road down in Albany. Right here in the North Country. We are not a slumbery little community. We have thousands of people that come here. In fact, another hotel is looking at us right now. And, we're bringing in people. The college, both SUNY Plattsburgh and Clinton Community College, are these magnets to bring, new people into the region. I've often felt that where a person chooses to live is one of the most defining decisions in their life. And whether you're a native or a transplant, where you choose to live says a lot about your character, your drive, and where you want to be in life, because it's an investment in yourself, but it's also an investment in your community. And those investments that are occurring here right now are of historic proportions. I don't want to go down through the entire laundry list, but Norsk Titanium, $125 million. The $38 million for the Plattsburgh International Airport. The money for the Advanced Manufacturing Institute over at Clinton Community College. The DRI funds. I can go on and on and on. But the point that I want to drive further, though, which I find fascinating, and it's a story that's not told as much, and it really needs to be, is we are seeing a number of companies change hands and continue their legacy, like Claire and Curls. They just changed hands a year or two ago. You're seeing multiple generations of families, share their businesses, expand. The other one is Northeast Printing. They do tons of work, including one of the best publications in the region, Strictly Business, celebrating the stories of what goes on behind the doors that people don't even realize. But, Mike Carpenter and Betsy Vincencio's involvement with the MHAB project, we have our challenges, like the opioid epidemic. It's ravaging communities across the country, but I argue that we have people like them that are helping to bring about solutions for the challenges and finding opportunities to bring people into the workforce, Connie Willie and a number of other folks. So even when we have to face the challenges, I'm comforted by the best resource that we have here are the people themselves. And, I came on the heels of the ice storm, and I heard how people opened up their homes and fed one another and kept people warm and, helped people get out of their driveways and, all this number of stuff. And I have seen time and time again since I've been here how people use the resolve of their best interests for their neighbors and their friends and their family in this community to get things done. It's amazing. It's very inspiring.
Yeah, and that's one of my from like a business perspective. Again, the idea that I try to pump as much money back into everybody else in the community. I'd rather have economics just change hands amongst neighbors than leave or obviously if we can bring money in, that's great from outsiders, but it's the idea that, I want to be able to support my local whomever that I can get that I know lives down the road, or that's part of the reason why I kind of joke, but like I gave you a t-shirt. I'm wearing a plain t-shirt right now, but I've started to wear more local t-shirts. I got buddies that give me t-shirts like their company, and I'll wear it around, especially if I'm going to an event that I know, like a parade or something. I'm going to throw my, Adams Brothers painting on, or my, Sparkle Clean, or anybody that gives me a shirt, my Boyer Banner shirt, like I'm gonna rock those out because I want people to see and support a local person that I know the face behind personally. And I think part of that is, and why our slogan is local matters. Like to me, the fact that we can get so many people, if we can, all rowing in the same direction and working towards the same North Star, which hopefully, like the way I look at it is, hopefully I live to 150 years old with modern technology. But at the end of the day, at some point, I'm gonna check out, and I just hope that I can leave a footprint on that my kids, who hopefully can live to 200 at that point, will be able to enjoy and move the needle forward that way. And that's something that I've really thought about more and gotten passionate about over the last couple of years, when I finally kind of, I think, grew up a little bit and kind of got to the point of like, there's something bigger than just yourself, and there's a way to, hopefully give back to the community the best you can. I try to, give as much as I can, either it be time or help, or someone calls me with even just the smallest issue, is to take the time to help them and take the time to give back. And I always get, and I think it's obviously known that people that give the most, I get more satisfaction on just helping someone out than I get on, if something comes to me. I almost feel obligated to over deliver back to somebody if they gave something to me, like return a favor tenfold, because I don't want to owe somebody something. And I think part of that is just, and I guarantee you're the same. I don't know this for a fact, but I guarantee you that you would much rather give your time, energy, happiness to somebody if you knew it was going to make their position, their, whether it be life, happiness, better, that you would do it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. So the other really kind of defining person in my life was my aunt. She lived to 103. Okay.
Love it.
She lived to 103. And she had her complete faculties, okay, till about a couple of weeks before her passing. And she was reading on average, I think, like 12 or 15 books a week. She had nothing more than about a fifth grade education. And she had this saying, and so I could be spending the night at my grandmother's house. She lived with my grandmother and my father. And I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be rubbing the crust out of my eyes, and I'd go in to say good morning, and she'd be like, what have you learned? And I'm like, when I was younger, I was like, what? And she's like, what have you learned? And it was the first time that you met her, the first thing out of her mouth would be, what did you learn? Or what have you learned today? And as I got older, I began to understand her general sentiments, because she was a scholar of the conversation. She was a scholar of wanting to absorb as much information, and every minute that she was awake and breathing, she understood that there was an opportunity to be educated by her surroundings. And with that, though, she also felt a great sense to give back. And like I said, she was very involved in her church, and she would do youth groups, and she would do study groups, and she would do a number of things. And she always felt like, I may not be the smartest person in the sense of having advanced degrees, but I have something to contribute based upon what I've learned. And if you can help other people learn, not profess to them, not teach down to them, but provide the general sentiment of we're all linked together, that's a really powerful concept. I mean, right now, you're dropping all kinds of wisdom on me that I'm beyond appreciative, because through these exchanges, I think we need to all take moments to reflect too. We kind of float through the world, we do our thing, our days are super busy, but how often are we taking 5 minutes to just go, okay, what did I learn today? And how am I going to use it? How's it going to better me? But more importantly, how's it going to better my family? How's it going to better my neighborhood, my community? Everybody has an opportunity to provide something for the community.
Yeah, and it's the one thing I love that you just said about always getting better. One of my absolute favorite hobbies, and I think I've had this since I was a kid and didn't really know it, now I'm a little more aware of it, is I love to learn, and I love gaining knowledge. It could be on a simple thing I know quite a bit about that I want to get even better at, like the fine details. It could be something general knowledge I don't really know about. I don't watch a lot of TV. I try to read every day, but I'm always, if I watch something, most likely it's something on YouTube to learn something. And I find that I get so much excitement out of just learning new things. And it was kind of, when you're a kid in school, a lot of kids don't like school. They don't like sitting there. And again, that's kind of for another time, but just sitting there learning, like I don't like sitting there learning about a topic I don't care to learn about. But if I have a passion about something, I'm going to run with it. And that's the reason why I think, like you said, you have a passion of, in your current day-to-day position of helping people, of trying to make the area better, you have a passion for that. That's why you work 60, 70 hours a week. That's why I probably put in probably 60, 70 hours a week into this company, because my grander vision is beyond this company, but I'm putting in the time because I have a passion for improving this, and that's kind of a fun thing for me. And you take, like you said, your aunt who was reading and learning stuff, and I love. My kids are probably going to hate me because I'm going to be probably doing the same thing. But anytime I see a young kid, I always ask them, especially if it's during school season, I'm like, hey, how was school today? First question, how was school? Yeah. Fine. They always say fine. Well, what'd you learn today? I always ask them that. I don't know. I said, well, what was the most fun thing you did in school today? I went to gym. So what'd you do in gym? And I try to get them to open up a little bit, but I think part of it is they're never going to remember that conversation. But it's one of those where I try to get a kid who's younger to think a little bit and to kind of, one, to speak to an adult or speak to somebody, and also get them to think a little bit and say, well, I went to we had a math test. Okay, how'd you do on the math test? I thought I did pretty good. Oh, that's awesome. What was the challenge that you overcame, or whatever the question might be. But I like to see it when either a kid clicks or they kind of get a little smile, and they can, and I think from especially a young perspective, if I can, and I'm not wiser, I'm not that, I'm still young in my life standpoint, but if I can look at a kid and kind of say, I remember when I was 8, 9, 10, let me get this kid kind of thinking to maybe take more appreciation for the day-to-day, and kind of like you said, what did I learn today? But to sit back and kind of say, like, maybe have a little pride of, oh yeah, I actually did well on that test. Hey, I did study for that test. And I do that with a lot of people, even peers. Like I always try to get people to look at the optimistic, exciting thing. And when I have a bad day, I'm always looking for like that light at the end of the tunnel, or the one. And there's a ton of days where it's just like I find that things aren't going my way, and I just want to rant. And there's times you just want to block everything out or just give up. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm gonna just try harder. I'm gonna work harder. I'm gonna find the solution. And I try to do that with other people if they're having a bad day. Well, it can't be that bad. And I try to hopefully get people to see the positive, because I'm a very positive person. I try to be. And you talk about like people working towards a goal, or like you said, improving their day to day. A positive attitude is a powerful tool, and it's very tough to get someone down. It's very tough to knock someone down a peg when they have such a positive perspective and attitude. That is something I look at it in my career, which is I've been able to grow quite a bit professionally and as a person and network of people, but I think I am doing it because people gravitate a little bit more towards me because I exude more positive energy than try to take away from people. I try to I try to put a smile on people's face if I can, and it might be at my own expense or my own joke, but I like it. I like kind of being the if I can make the situation better at any point, whether, like I said, it makes me looking like an idiot or whatever, I'll do it. And
attitude is a huge portion of it, though. The joke is, people often ask me, throughout the day, hey, like we all do, right? Hey, how you doing? And my response pretty much always is living the dream. Mm-hmm. And people, it's been kind of a joke around the office because I do rounds with all my department heads. I'm dyslexic. And I much rather have a conversation than to write emails. I like the response. I like the organic nature of it. But anyways, when I say living the dream, even when I'm having a bad day, and this is kind of the little asterisk to that statement is, even when you're having a bad day, I can confidently say that because nightmares are dreams too. But I want to project.
I love that.
I want to project, right? That the idea is the positive part of it. And, and that's not to say that you shouldn't have moments where you are frustrated and angry and sad. And, it's okay to have those moments. And I think, growth and pain, are some of those things and how we, evolve as human beings. But there are a lot of people out there that are just energy suckers, right? Mm-hmm. That you're just around them, and by the end of the conversation, you're like, oh my. I mean, and Aaron Benner is one of those people for me that exudes such a positive energy. And Aaron to me is kind of like, I call him my weather vane, in the sense that he is the type of person that I think he is a phenomenal father.
Yeah.
I think he is a phenomenal entrepreneur, and just he's the real deal. And he and I are, we've said, brothers from another mother, in the sense that we're both Capricorns and we're born one day apart.
Wait, when's your birthday?
Mine's December 26th.
And Aaron's December 27th?
Yep.
I'm December 24th.
Well, welcome to the fold, my friend.
That's it.
And so, we have this just really, really unique bond. But his energy level is a lot higher than mine, and I don't say that from a bad thing, but I've never walked away from Aaron feeling down or bad. And everybody needs to have some of those people in their life. Mm-hmm. And what I try to offer, hopefully for Aaron, and I'm not trying to tell tales out of school, is I've told him is if he ever needs somebody to bend an ear, I hope that he would turn to me, and I think that's what you have to do for one another, for your friends and your family, is provide the invitation to be there for one another.
Yeah, I my Aaron story is now. Aaron at this point has become a very good friend of mine, and I ran into him, and we've talked about it. I have a little bit of, and people wouldn't notice, and I've talked about this before. I've always had social anxiety in large groups and stuff, but it's something that I've worked to get over, and I've done a good job at it. But I was a split-second decision. I almost talked my way out of never talking to Aaron. It was, to put it back about giving back, I was at a career fair. There's no reason I need to be at a career fair for junior high kids, but it's part of the thing, give back and give to the kids. I was in my head, we were kind of on a little break between classes. Do I go talk to Aaron? Do I not? Do I talk to Aaron? And it was more for marketing. And long story short, had I not talked to him at that time, I don't think things would have worked out the way they have. Now, obviously, he's the landlord of the building that I'm in, but I was on Ryan Lee's podcast, and Ryan always asks a question: if you had to have a board of directors, 3 board of directors for your life, who would they be? Aaron would probably be number one if I had to pick. If I had to have a board of directors of one person, it would be Aaron. And I'm very lucky that I can pretty much call him at any time, and he's gonna, well, if he doesn't pick up, he'll call me back, and he'll be there for me as a sounding board, or as a a thought, or just, hey, I need reassurance. And I meet with him. We have a monthly meeting once a month, Obviously, it has to do with we do talk about the marketing of the company and stuff like that, but that 2 hours is never 2 hours, and as you know, that always will go long, never short. But a lot of it is just above and beyond business. It's we've talked about life, we talk about family, we talk about a lot of it is the area, the growth of the area, and like you said, a weather vane. I would say he's kind of like the William Wallace of the North Country, just running with the spear at the beginning, at the front of the line as we're all chasing this grander vision for the area. And that guy, I mean, his level of optimism is 1,000%. You know, I mean, he's on another planet when it comes to that. But he is so passionate about the North Country that if you think the North Country is the worst place to live, have a conversation with Aaron Benner, and you will be a believer at the end of that conversation. Because if we had, like I said, a whole group of, if we had a whole group of Aaron Benners, we better, we got to get some extra seat belts and some helmets and stuff. But man, I think if he, if you have him on your side and working towards a cause, you have the right energy. That guy is, top notch through and through. And from a sounding board perspective, like you said, I try to, for me, align myself with, you talked about like energy suckers. I try to cut those people out of my life. And I've gotten to the point over the last handful, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years, I've really tried to limit anybody that I think is not going to be a positive influence on my life. And the other thing too is, now that I have a family, I value my time way more than I did before, because if I'm not doing something, I don't want to waste time, because that's time away that I'm not moving the needle forward for our family or spending time with my kids or my wife. And so if I'm wasting time with people that aren't, improving my life, then I selfishly don't want them in my life, and or I want the good people in my life. I want to try to bring them on. My one thing I kind of wanted to ask you about, because I have a few topics here that I want to get through.
Sure.
Which I think is very cool, and I know you've mentioned it before. What were you appointed to at the state level? I know you were. Was it service? Something of service?
Yes.
What's the title of it, and what is your role in that?
Yeah. So Governor Cuomo appointed me to basically the Commission on National Community Service and Volunteerism. There's like a statewide commission. And that commission's primary responsibility is to promote, engage, and to put forth an agenda that activates citizens in the arena of volunteerism. In particular, through VISTA and AmeriCorps. It facilitates those programs for throughout the state. And the commission has some responsibilities for overseeing, the budget process and the application process for the AmeriCorps programs, but overall just promoting a more active citizenry throughout New York State in the arenas of volunteerism. It's a volunteer job. We meet, a couple handfuls of times throughout the year, conference calls, meetings, etc. And for me, it really was a very humbling appointment. When a governor of your state,
well, much less New York State.
Yes, taps you for something. But I became aware of this commission actually when I was working at the college. So I used to run the volunteer clearinghouse called Project Help. And a little shout out to the college students who sometimes don't get enough credit. I often would call them campus college citizens, because you have to understand that an academic year is 15 weeks in the fall and 15 weeks in the spring. And we had over 1,400 students formally registered in that program. And so it was approximately maybe 1 out of every 4, 1 out of every 5. And they would do upwards of 25 to 30,000 hours of community service in our region. What's even more impressive, though, first week and the last week, finals week, and that 15 week is usually a melt away. The first week is, starting up. Then you've got in the fall, Thanksgiving, in the spring break. So really, you're talking about 12 weeks in the fall and 12 weeks in the spring, and these students are committing thousands of hours right here in our region to all these nonprofit organizations, committing themselves to, again, helping that dial move forward. And when I was the assistant director for the Center for Student Involvement, I became aware of this commission and how they continue to try to promote this area. I was very thankful to now be involved statewide in promoting it. I believe that we should be adopting a national service model. I think every person should either go into the military or should commit to some type of national service at some point in their life, starting around the age of 18. I think that would help our youth mature a little bit more, get them a wide and vast level of experience, both personally and professionally, and I think it would lift up our country immensely as well.
Yeah, like you said, I think getting tapped for anything, especially New York State, because it's not. I mean, not to look down in any other states, but New York State's one of the big ones. You know what I mean? And I think from a national perspective, it's a state where a lot of, obviously economics travel through, a lot of, whether it be social, economic, a lot of things go through New York, go through California. I'm sure, obviously, Texas and Florida, and you got some bigger states in between. But no, I thought that was cool because I'd heard about when you obviously got it, and I knew a little bit about what you did and stuff. And I figured anytime you get tapped to go up, because at that point you're going beyond the borders of our county, or for you, the town of Plattsburgh. Now, have you ever thought about carrying on? You said you stopped 3 terms as supervisor. Have you thought about bigger aspirations after? About, hey, I want to move on to run for, whether it be the state level, whether it be for. I mean, I'm sure the next stepping stone would be some type of state involvement. I don't think, or would you go with, I mean, I guess you could do federal, because
I'll be very, very blunt and very direct, and anybody can take this sound clip and run it as a commercial. I will never run for Congress or federal Senate.
Okay.
I have no interest in going down to DC and being in the meat grinder. Largely because it's become such a process where all people are doing is fundraising. It's so divisive. It's so us versus them. Mm-hmm. I believe in a model of, you need to have communication, collaboration, and compromise. And I feel like those 3 things are missing in government right now. I think they've been missing in government for a long time. So right now, I'm loving 90% of my job. Mm-hmm. I'm rolling up my sleeves. We're doing some great projects. That's where my focus is right now.
I've always believed that at the local level, you can make you can move the needle so much so much more, either speed-wise or just the overall impact at the local level than you can at a federal or state level. Things just move too slow there. I think things can move faster here, and also you have a way better pulse when you, like you said, you go to the grocery store and can see everybody. You know people by names. You know business people by names. You know the teachers by names. You know the other leaders of different organizations by names. And you know exactly when they refer to something, you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been there, I've drove by it, I've walked past it, whatever. And that's something that I'm sure you agree with that, right?
Yeah, government works at glacial speed, though. I mean, it's designed almost like a cruise ship. Okay, it's so big that it's almost designed so it's hard to make hard left or right turns, mm-hmm. right? Even at the local level, a lot of people will come in and they have a concern or a complaint, and it may be a law or a rule or a policy or something that's been designed by the county, the state, the federal government, and because there's a high level of access to us locally, we're the first point of entry, but we may not be the ones to actually be able to push the dial as quickly. We become advocates with folks, but that policy or procedure is really kind of higher up in the the food chain of government. So I think we need to work more creatively to find solutions.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, because I think you posted about this today, or was it yesterday on your Instagram? I guess an event or organization that I've done some fundraising for, or I've donated to, or whatever, because I believe in it. But was the honor flight, and I, for one, and this is again, it's kind of like a local, bucket list. I've never been to the send off, and anybody that's ever gone has told me you're missing out because it is a powerful event and powerful time. But you just, and again, I want to make sure I have this correct, and you correct me if I'm wrong. You were, in this current flight, you were the flight leader going down to Washington. And I guess tell me the story about that and your experience with the honor flight.
Sure. How do I want to approach this? So I guess I want to start just very quickly as I had spoken about my grandfather as a veteran. He's no longer with us, but he was during the Korean era, and he taught me a lot of those life lessons, and also what it means to value service and patriotism and love of country. And he was just such a strong mentor to me. And my sister-in-law, a number of years ago, she signed up to be a Marine. And they say once a Marine, always a Marine. And she's gotten out since. But I've always been very appreciative of those people that have selected or drafted to serve our country. And as the town supervisor, I've had many opportunities to be involved with honor flight, to support it as an elected official. But the way that I've looked at it, for me, is honor flight is really in the personal realm of things. It's great to be able to go to events as the town supervisor, but if there is a single program, a single organization locally in our community that truly is very personal, again, from my grandfather to my sister-in-law, it's honor flight. And for those of your listeners that may not know, is honor flight was a program that was established to get World War II veterans, the greatest generation, down to D.C. to see the monuments built in their honor, because it was one of the last monuments built. Okay, and North Country Honor Flight has, over the course of its program, now sent over 400 veterans down to D.C. And they send, now they're doing World War II veterans, they're doing Korean veterans, they're doing Vietnam veterans, and they've expanded that. And for Flight 27, so not this last flight, but the flight before, Barry Finnegan, who's the executive director, invited me to lunch over Michigan. And he said, listen, I know that you're really passionate about honor flight. Would you consider being an assistant flight leader? And he and I had a really great conversation. And I said, Barry, I would love to. So I had an opportunity to be an assistant flight leader. And the way that the process works is, as an assistant flight leader, you go and participate, and then you serve as the flight leader for the next flight. Okay. Yep. So I was assistant flight leader for Flight 26. And then for Flight 27, I was the flight leader. And I'm trying not to get emotional about it, because it still gives a rise of the hair on the back of my neck. It was an honor and a privilege of a lifetime. So we sent down on Flight 27 15 veterans. We had one gentleman who was 101. And then we had, some of the younger veterans, Vietnam veteran, but every single one of those folks, just their dedication and their passion and how humble they are. Not a single one of them didn't say, I'm not a hero. And it's like, yes, you are. Yes, you are. They are our truest hometown heroes. And one of the most truly humbling experiences that a flight leader gets, and the honor comes from, you do often a home visit. Okay. Sometimes we meet somewhere else for a cup of coffee, and, these folks would often bring out shoe boxes, and it would be photos of when they were in service, and sometimes they would take out their medals, and they would tell you stories, and often, many times, their husbands and wives and kids and folks would be around the table, and they'd never heard the stories before. Mm-hmm. And it's like, to be part of opening that up was just, I really don't know how to put it into terms. So we went down to DC. It was a great day, a great experience, and North Country Honor Flight, I argue, has become kind of like a fraternal organization within itself. All the veterans get hats and jackets, and there's a lot of traditions that go along with this. And Flight 27 will be a cohort of family within a larger family. And I've stayed in touch with many of the veterans, and many more will be hearing from me soon, because we got some other special things coming up for them. And I just feel so blessed to have been extended the opportunity to have that relationship with them.
How does because one thing I've always wanted to do, and I've heard it can be tough because of a lot of them go down with family and things like that, but everybody has like what they call it, chaperone or whatever.
Yep.
Like, how would you become one of those?
So they're called guardians. And the way that it works is, so say we have a veteran that has a son or a daughter. That individual could serve as their guardian, but we actually have a number of veterans that don't have anybody. And we're in need of people to volunteer to be a guardian. The guardians pay a nominal fee, and that's to support the program, because the guardians also get the jackets and the hats and some of the stuff that kind of makes the program move. Mm-hmm. And we have to pay for the tickets down to DC, but anybody can sign up to be a guardian by putting in an application. Go to the North Country Honor Flight website or Facebook page. You can learn more information. But I would encourage any one of your listeners to go on there and to become familiarized with the program, so that you can be scouting ambassadors for us, to make sure that we encourage our veterans to get on these flights. And, I hate to say this, but we don't have many more World War II veterans that we can tap for these flights. And we want to make sure that we get them. We want to make sure that we're honoring all of these folks. I'm dragging you to the next send-off. So
I'd like to go. I mean, I'd like to do. I've even thought about doing like the Guardian thing at some point. I mean, I'd probably want to go see the event just to kind of get more appreciation for it. But I was not in the military. I don't really. I mean, I have some cousins that are in the military. They're my age. I mean, they're in the military in some aspect. But obviously, I mean, the amount. I mean, they say it's the ultimate sacrifice, to go to war. And again, I wish there was not war, but we're human. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be, but I think the people that can say, and this goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War, like, mm-hmm. I'm going to put basically my most valuable thing I have, my life, on the line to protect other people. Part of it is I would like to say that, or I'd like to think that I could do that, but I never was in that position to do it, or never, chose that path. But the people that are willing to do that, and it's like, man, like, you're better than I am, And I always looked at it like, could I have done the same thing? I probably could have. I put my mind, kind of committed to it. But mm-hmm. the people that, especially, man, back in, World War II, I think, like you had mentioned, the people that were in World War II are very old at this point. Obviously, I mean, it's not a, you do the math, but it's almost, you get to the point where seeing them is like seeing seeing a celebrity. It's like, that guy's was in World War II, which is absolutely mind blowing to me. That, and I always find that somebody at that, because most of those guys have to be mid 90s to early hundreds that are still alive. It's so cool that those. I would love to sit down with someone that was a World War II vet, but I know a lot of them are very, like you talked about the stories, and they talked about for the first time, their families have heard about it for the first time. A lot of them don't discuss that kind of stuff. It was like they went in, They did their service very humbly. They're not going to brag about it. They're not going to say, I went to here, there, or this, and did this or that. A lot of those guys, they have like a fraternity amongst, their fellow soldiers at the time. But, and I think a lot of people that you go into the military now, like someone says, thank you for your service. A lot of them kind of shy away and say, well, it's not a big deal. But it's like, it's anything but not a big deal, And no, I would love to go to one of those events. I just think that, and I talked to someone the other day that was part of the motorcade that, and I would love to go see just the whole send off, because to me, it's such a cool, rewarding experience for the veterans. And like I said, as a guardian, I would be, I think that would be so cool to go down and just experience it with them. Obviously it'd be cool to go down to DC and do the thing, but it'd be fun to, or I think kind of eye-opening to, especially, some of those guys that are well up in age, getting them to experience something they probably have never seen before that was dedicated to something that was probably a huge part of their life, even though it was many years ago. No, I think it's phenomenal. When I saw the post, I had read through it, and I didn't know what a flight leader was, but you kind of went into it a little bit, and I know obviously it's, before talking with you, I knew it was a big deal, so I just wanted to kind of hear your perspective on it. Part of it is because I'm curious about the group. I've done events that have donated money to it. I've given money to it and supported the cause because I obviously, feel strongly about the organization, but I've never seen it firsthand. So that's why. Do you know when the next one is?
I don't have the recall of the next date isn't coming to my mind, but I'll guarantee you one is the dates are on the website. They're always on the website. But if you go to a send-off, you're going to keep coming back. And one of the special things that occurs is we do an introduction of the veterans, and they have a small bio that's read about them. So it gives you a window into their lives. And it's really a spectacular moment to honor and celebrate them, and just to realize how much these folks in our greater region have given. As we're sitting here and I'm looking at Lake Champlain through the windows, I'm reminded of the fact that we live in a very historical area. We often think about the Battle of Plattsburgh as kind of like that signature occurrence, throughout history, and there's a lot to celebrate there. You had alluded to earlier the Jetties project, or the Battlefield Memorial Gateway project, Veterans Park that we're working on in the town. That gateway overlooks Crab Island, which represents the Battle of Plattsburgh, and just south to that is Valcour Island, which represents the American Revolution, and then back to the parcel of land that we're developing was part of the old Air Force base. So we're calling it the Triangle of History. This region has sent men and women into every conflict that our country has been involved with since the birth of our nation. That by itself should give everyone great pause of reflection. And the occurrences that are happening right now, we have men and women serving. And my philosophy has been, and I've been very appreciative that the Plattsburgh Town Board and our team members have adopted, and I don't want to make it about me because it's a philosophy that we've all adopted, is we want to make sure that we honor them all. The town of Plattsburgh recently became the first community in the North Country known as what's called a Purple Heart town. Mm-hmm. And we're working with the Clinton County American Legions on that. And, we're doing the hometown hero banners. If you go up,
Route 3's got them all.
Yeah. And, people might say, oh, well, those are just, those are nice. And to me, it's not just about one singular thing. We should be taking as many opportunities to express what our community values are. And that's how we express them, by showing appreciation to those people that have stepped forward on our behalf to secure our freedoms.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I'd like to go, like I said, if I can go to the next one, I would like to do that. But no, I appreciate you opening up about that. The other thing that I know about you, and I don't know if I'm assuming you are you Irish?
I'm Irish.
Okay. Because I know you went over to Ireland. The reason parents from Ireland, grandparents?
Not parents, grandparents, great grandparents. Keep going. That
Okay,
way.
yeah. So I'm the same. My grandfather, who's I might get the year wrong. I think he's 95 right now. He came over from County Kerry, so the southwest portion of Ireland. I've been lucky enough to go over twice. When I was a kid, I was 14 and 17. So it's been 12 years since I've been over. I can't wait to bring my kids over, my family. We still have cousins. When we went over, we stayed with family. We hung out with family. It wasn't a touristy type vacation. We did a couple things here and there, but we stayed in, pretty much lived in County Kerry, Killarney for 10 to 14 days. And we saw, it was literally like saying someone's going to go to Plattsburgh if they're going to the United States. Like, you're going to see a much more rural country feel. And one of my favorite places on earth is Ireland, for many reasons. Obviously, the fact that when you talk about like kind of like good memories from your lifetime, I think that's something that I'll always look back on, that I could go to Ireland twice with my grandfather, who now he's not going to unfortunately go back just due to age and stuff, but I was able to go over with him when he still had a lot of energy, and saw his siblings, my cousins. But you could, you get them back with his old crew, and they got the brogue just gets way thicker, and you can't understand them. And it's like, Grandpa, I've heard you talk for 14 years, and why can't I understand you for 12 days or whatever it was? So, but that's something I always take away is probably something I'll really cherish. That was a cool moment. Just obviously you're on vacation, but part of it is you get to we went to the old homestead where he grew up. We went to,
that's awesome.
And a lot of that is you kind of go back and you trace your roots back. You could go back to my great-grandparents' grave sites, and I never met them, but I've seen pictures, I've heard stories, and it's something that I always thought was really special. So I want to kind of hear your experience of going to. How many times have you been to Ireland?
So I've been to Ireland 3 times, and the first. So the funny story is the first time that we went to Ireland. It was kind of a challenge due to my stepfather. And I'd said before that I'm dyslexic, and I was never an honor roll student. Okay, I wasn't a D student, but I just wasn't an honor roll student. And he said to me, if you make honor roll this term, we'll go wherever you want. And I always wanted to go to Ireland, and I worked my butt off. I just really, really worked my butt off, and everything just gelled. So I went with my mom, my stepfather, and my grandmother, who is not. She's Irish, but she's not from the motherland, as they might say. So it was an opportunity for her to go and to learn about family and stuff. That was the first time, and we had did the bed and breakfasts, and did a lot of kind of the touristy things. And then the second time that we went was my wife and I. We had been married, and when we got married, we didn't have a big we didn't have like a, what do you call
honeymoon?
it? Thank you.
Yeah.
Honeymoon. Yeah. Because we were students. Mm-hmm. And so a couple of years later, we decided, and we always wanted to go to Ireland. And actually, my wife's uncle is Scottish, actually Scottish. And so we went, and one of the things that we did is, you can see, we both got claddagh rings. Yep. And so we exchanged the wedding rings that we had, and we renewed our vows there. Oh, cool. And to us, it was just a really wonderful experience to be in a beautiful location, and these are just a wonderful symbol of our relationship, from love, loyalty, and friendship. And more recently, we had an opportunity we went to Paris and Ireland in this last trip. And we hadn't been traveling anywhere for a while, and it was just one of our favorite places, and it just clicked. So we spent 4 days in Dublin. We didn't really do kind of the traditional thing. but we spent a lot of time there. And the funniest thing that occurred in this last trip, we just got off the plane, went in, grabbed a bite to eat, and a rugby match had let out. And this guy turns to Olivia and he goes, are you visiting your boyfriend? And she goes, what? And because I wear a scally cap often, and she goes, no. And he goes, oh. And he thought that I was there, like I was Irish. And throughout the entire trip, people would often tap me on the shoulder or stop me in the alleyway and stuff, be like, hey, do you have a place, recommendation for a place to get a drink or for eat and stuff like that? And Olivia thinks it's just hilarious. So we feel at home there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, for anybody that has not seen you, you look Irish. You got the red hair, and I'm sure that you're like me, that you burn fairly easily in the sun.
Yeah.
The coolest thing, I mean, look, again, we stayed more in kind of the countryside. I've been to Dublin.
Yep.
We went to the Blarney Stone. The one thing I've never done is gone up around the entire coast, which that's the bucket list. I would like to go visit and kind of do a circumnavigate the country. But one of the coolest events was we went to a Gaelic football match, which is kind of this hybrid rugby, soccer. I guess, I don't know, it's an odd sport, but it's fun. And we went to watch what they call the Munster Finals, which Munster is the southern portion, I guess, region of Ireland.
Yep.
And kind of, I don't know if that's where Munster cheese comes from, but it's, right, Munster, yeah. But it was a Munster Finals, and it had Kerry and Cork, who were the big rivals at the time. And Kerry won at the home turf, so they won, and then we ended up kind of spilling out into the streets.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was the greatest time. I was 17 at the time, and it was kind of I think it was the first time I really fully tested my liver. And but we had a blast, and it was so cool to see everybody, like, I mean, and again, they're not drinking a lot of, back then at least, it wasn't a lot of light beer. I mean, you're drinking kind of the pretty hefty beers over there, and it was so fun to see just the amount of people with such passion for, and in a sport that I know of only played on the island. Nobody, it's not a multi-country or world sport, and people got the green and gold. They have the Kerry jersey. I have a Kerry jersey at home. I mean, people that know me know I love green. Obviously, our logo is we have shamrocks. I mean, it's just it's a phenomenal place. And it's beautiful. And the fact that they say it rains every day, it is, but it rains just enough to make everything more green than it already is. And it's great. I absolutely love it.
The first time that my wife and I went, besides renewing our vows, I was on a mission to get a hurling stick. And
I got a ball, not a stick.
And I watch the game on YouTube. Like I love the game, and I'm trying to explain it for anyone that doesn't know it. Think just the bloodiest hockey sport meets field hockey meets. I mean, it's just
with no protection.
Yes, YouTube it, folks. It's amazing.
It's nuts.
When I was younger, I had played hockey for a while, and just so when I was telling her about this. And we had done we went down the southern coast, and I said, I'm going to get a stick. And, the first time I went to Ireland, I got to play in a pickup game, and, I thought it was great.
For hurling?
Yeah. The first time that I went. And I'm telling her about this, and she's like, okay. And I forget what little tiny corner we had peeled into, and I saw this sign. And we went on this 12-mile adventure, and right on the roads, these little tiny, like sheep and cows. Two ways or one ways.
They're basically yes. I said the one-way roads.
Yeah. So we come across this small little shop, and they're selling all kinds of apparel and things. And I'm like, listen, I want a hurling stick. And she's like, okay. I mean, I dropped some good money on it. And
you still have it at home?
I still have it at home.
Okay.
And so I was, we were engaged in this conversation and such. And this kid walks in, and he got a ball or something like that. And I'm like, "Is there a game going on?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, down around the square and stuff like that." And Olivia really had never seen it in action, so we drive down, and they were a youth group. So I mean, I was a bit towering and stuff, but it was just it's like people here would play baseball in the backyard. I mean, they just live and breathe it, and it's such a fascinating sport. But it's bloody.
It's not, yeah. If YouTube it, but it's basically lacrosse with a stick, like a flat stick. There's no net.
Nope.
And the hand-eye coordination's amazing. Then they pop it up and they swing that thing like a golf club or a baseball bat.
Yep.
It's insane. They have goalies, so some guy's getting hit with this ball, and the ball is not like you're using like this like tennis ball. It is a full-on. It's like somebody whacking a baseball bat with a baseball like at you, and you're trying to stop it without a glove. Like, I mean, you're literally just trying to knock this damn thing down. I have not seen a hurling match. Gaelic soccer is not as brutal. You can still it's not like rugby where you tackle. There's a little more kind of, I don't know, it's a different style of sport, but hurling to me is crazy, the people that do it. But like you said, you just kind of drive around. You just could drive down the road. They got either soccer going on, they have hurling, they have Gaelic football, golf, and horse races. That's like Ireland to a T. They don't have all the other sports, rugby. They play rugby. So just seeing it in all the sports, and the cool thing is, Ireland, I think geographically is the size of Maine, very similar in shape, and I think about the same square miles or whatever you want to call it. And there's, I believe, is there 26 counties in Ireland, something like that, around 30?
Yeah, approximately, I believe.
So each county has their own team. Like, so that's like your professional team, or your first team is your county, which would be like, and I guess saying Clinton County has a county team that's going to go play, Oneida County. Like that's the way that it's kind of broken up, but they're not professionals. I know the best. I actually have his book over there. Colin Cooper.
Okay.
And he was a very, very big Gaelic football player, and I went and watched him back in 2007 when they won the Munster, and he scored the goal, and he was kind of like their best player. He's a banker. Like, he's a banker at a local bank. Yeah. Okay. So the funny thing about them is none of them are professionals. They play this at a volunteer, or just like a kid playing youth sports, but they have an actual professional team and they play. And then all the parks are fairly small. It's kind of like going to, the Plattsburgh State Field, maybe adding, a little bit more bleachers, but you're kind of doing the same thing. It's kind of like these little sections. And then you go to Croke Park, which is in Dublin, which is, they have concerts and stuff at. But
it's huge.
Yeah, it's very big, and that's where they always have what they call the All-Ireland final. And my grandfather, there's a great photo of and again, like I said, he's 95 now, but there's a great photo of him, and a couple of his brothers are there, and it's a team photo of them at Gaelic football. Now, my grandfather's probably high school age, something like that, and they're all just kind of lined up, and luckily he still looks pretty much the same at 95 as he did at 25, just a little grayer, but he, it's so cool to look back at those old photos, but he was part of that. And I remember one of the best moments, and we always kind of joke around with him when, and we go to this Munster finals, and we're sitting up kind of, I say nosebleeds, but you're not that far up, but you're in the higher level. And somehow him and his brother got tickets. They were between both benches about 4 rows up from the field. Like, really right in the heart of the action, as close as you could get. And we joked around, and you could see them like over the field, and literally you got the players running right in front of them, and all of a sudden the game ends. They go out the tunnel. One of our relatives or whatever picked them up right at the door, brought them home. But it was like we were kind of joking around like the VIPs of the thing. But of course, my grandfather at the time is in his 80s, and they're watching this game, and it was so cool to see. But he had obviously played as a child, and of course, every time he goes back, he's like a little kid, kind of reliving. And so the hurling is crazy. I think my oddest moment going to Ireland, I was 14 at the time, and we were at it was a Irish dance music kind of thing. We went and watched it, and whoever it was I guess a fairly big Irish dancer at the time. I was little, I didn't really understand who it was, but I remember going to the bar, and of course my dad and my uncle and a couple of the cousins, they would get obviously beer or Guinness or whatever they were drinking. And so I go up and say, well, I want a pint of Coca-Cola, and so the bartender goes up, fills up Coca-Cola about halfway up, and then he stops. I'm like, what's he doing? Then he kind of looks over and he winks at me, and he goes over and he tops the second portion of it up with Guinness. Then he comes over and he slides it over to me. And I remember my dad sitting there looking at me. And, of course, I'm 14 at the time. I've never drank in my life. And I go, it's got a big head of foam on top. So I'm like, yeah, this is going good. So then I just remember my dad saying, "Don't let your mother see that." So of course, great parenting advice from my father. I'll be doing the same to my son. But so I remember walking back. And I have the glass in my hand. I have my hands kind of like holding it like this. And of course, what was my mom going to do when I was 14? Probably nothing. So I'm like scared to death. So I'm walking back to my seat. I have the Guinness Coca-Cola concoction in my hand. I remember sitting down and of course my grandfather, 95, has never drank in his life, and which is an odd thing, but teetotalers they call it, but they took he has never drank. So and still to this day, I don't think I've ever had a drink in front of my grandfather. It's just something kind of like a respect thing I've just never really wanted to do. Maybe at a wedding in the last few years probably, but before that. So I'm sitting there and I'm holding this can or this pint glass, and I'm sipping at it like this. That was the worst drink I've ever had in my life. I just remember, and I'm sitting there, and I don't know, again, I would probably like to try it now to see how bad it actually tastes, but at 14, beer did not taste good, let alone beer mixed with sugary soda. So I don't know what the bartender was thinking, but I was 14, could barely stand over the bar at that time, and I just remember him doing that, and then the second time, a couple years later, I went back, and I had adjusted a little bit to my palate, but I just thought it was kind of a funny thing that, over there, obviously, it's a much more laid-back country in certain aspects. A much more simple country in the sense that, and what did you find? I think that they're very much 20 years behind us in regards to a lot of things. In regards to, of course, I'm kind of going more for the country, not Dublin, because Dublin, obviously, is a city. It's probably well caught up to everything. But, cars, dress, interior of homes, designs. I remember going to the airport, just the way the public facilities were set up was I was like a blast in the past kind of thing. Did you ever notice that when you went?
So the last time we went, we did not go to the countryside. So it's been some time since we're in the country portion of it. I would agree from the standpoint that it's simpler. But I think that I would say it from the phrase of there isn't this great want for things. So people are happy with their small thatched cottages, and and mind you, not all of Ireland is that postcard that we kind of have in our mind.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is, though, right? A lot of it is just open fields and greenery, and like you'd never get Disney to build a Magic Kingdom in Ireland because they have real castles. It's like truly you can be driving around, and in the back of someone's cottage, way in the back, it may be falling apart, but the remnants of some of those larger estates are still there. So I think it's a simpler thing, but I think that's also what makes it such a wonderful place. Every time that we've been, we've remarked that the Irish are a very welcoming people, and they'll just start chatting you up in all kinds of conversations. You can be sitting in a bar or at a shop or having a meal, and the person will turn to you and say, "Where are you from? What's going on?" and just start having these casual conversations. And I love that. I think it's really cool.
The second time I went over, we stayed, or both times we stayed in a thatch. We rented like a thatch cottage, and in the inside, it's normal. You get, everything inside is modern, but the roof is, what you'd see on a postcard. The outside's kind of that like stucco design. Yep. A lot of them are just plain white buildings. There's not a lot of, or you go down and all the shops are very vibrant colors. A lot of the little shops, you have yellows and oranges and blues and pinks and greens and just, and every other one's a bar or a bed and breakfast. And one of the coolest things is we walk down every night. We go down to the little pub, and there's 1,000 pubs, but you go down to the closest one. You sit down, you have a couple pints of beer. You have, obviously, there's a lot of locals. There's a lot of people there. And majority of the time, there's somebody playing music. That's kind of a big thing over there. It's just, it could be simple. It could be someone just fiddling on a guitar or a fiddle or drums, or someone just singing. But there's always music, and that's one of the cool things about it is live music too. And then you go into the pubs, they're usually dark, kind of cramped kind of things. There's typically a bunch of random decor. A lot of them, the true pubs, you got like a lot of things is made out of wood. You got the wooden posts, you got the wooden bar, you got the wooden tables and stools, and you have, whether it be stickers or bottle caps or tags or whatever, stapled to the wall or jammed to the wall. Like, a lot of it's just there's a lot of local flair to all the pubs, and almost every pub is named after somebody. It's O'Brien's or O'Callahan's or Finnegan's it's the coolest thing is when you just go by and you just see them, and the atmosphere in them is always great. And I think that they're kind of one of those people that I still think, like, if they'd be the people that would beat you up, but then pick you off the ground, dust you off, and say, all right, I'll see you tomorrow kind of deal. Like, I think that there's a lot of old school mentality to a lot of those people. But like you said, welcoming, I mean, you can't get more welcoming than the Irish.
Yeah. It was funny because, so the two trips that I've been on with Olivia, both times she's remarked, spending time, in Ireland, I better understand kind of your personality, because I think there's like this trait that just kind of sticks with us, right? The Irish are ones we like some malarkey, we like some snarkery, right?
Yep.
I'm very fluent in sarcasm. So the other part to it is, and it was fascinating because just having lots of conversations, we have a very unique type of personality. There's a certain stoic personality, but there's also we can hold our grudges, too, I think. And but the funniest part of it was the first trip that we were on, there was an unexpected warm spell there. And that was about, like, I don't know, it was like 75 or 80. I mean, not terribly warm, but pretty warm for Ireland during the season that we had gone. And Olivia turns to me and she goes, "Your people are melting." And because we're all fair-skinned, and she goes, "Now I understand why everybody goes into bars. It's because it's dark and dank in there."
Well, I took a photo. I don't have my phone with me, but I was at a house the other day, and the coolest thing was like a bottle opener, but on the sign it said pub, the Irish sunscreen. Yeah, which is I took a picture of it. I'm like, that is the funniest thing ever, because it's true. And any of my friends know me. I'm not a sun person. I love the last couple of days we've had beautiful weather, but it is basically borderline too hot for me right now, and we're probably looking at about 80 degrees. Yep. I feel very comfortable. I'm a moderate guy. I'm a 40 to 70 degree guy. I could live in a hoodie and either jean or like pants, hoodie, or a light jacket 365 days of the year.
Ditto.
Yeah, I don't want to be in shorts and a tank top and sandals, and I don't want to be bundled up in a parka. And I think my friends think I'm crazy that I don't want to lay out on the beach. Or, to me, like going down to like a Caribbean island, like that's cool for like a half hour, and then I'm sweating and the humidity's getting to me in the sun. I'm getting a headache and I'm burning. Yep. I'm like, let me go anywhere else. Let me go to a museum. Let me go to Ireland, where it's going to rain every day, and I'm totally fine with jumping through puddles. That is way more relaxing, and I guess kind of in my element. And that's, I think, 100% my Irish coming through, because there's not a lot of tan people in my mother's side of the family.
Yeah, we don't tan, we freckle. I mean, that's maybe the best we get.
I always tell people, if I'm tanning, I'm like, people say I want my base tan. I'm like, I'm giving my base burn, and then I'll tan after. I'm like, once I get through the burn and the aloe and all that. So, there's not enough SPF 50 that's going to help me out. So, also wanted to touch upon. This was kind of this threw me for a loop when I first asked you about this, and this is kind of the one thing that made me, I think, become a Cashman fan. We were talking about your love of coffee, and what I want to kind of and I shouldn't say love of coffee, I should say necessity or your fuel. When I had asked you something about coffee, you're like, yeah, I drink a lot of coffee, and I go, okay, well, how many cups a day? And I think you responded with two pots, and I said, no, I mean like cups, like mugs or whatever. And you're like, no, 2 like pots of coffee. So for people that don't, a couple questions, tell us. I want to know how you got, because I love coffee, and I kind of nerd out on a lot of things with coffee. And if I had more time, I would be one. If I had a lot of time, I would love to open a coffee roasting place, because I do love coffee. But tell me when you started drinking coffee, who got you into coffee, and how much coffee you drink a day. Because as we're talking right now, you have a coffee, and we're going on 8:00 at night. Yeah. So give us all things coffee.
And I'm probably going to get another one on the way home. So Honestly, my coffee consumption, really just depends on if I can get it in me. I'll drink coffee all day. So I do rounds in the morning with my department heads, and they learned quickly to allow for a coffee cup to be in my hand for first engagement. I have a grumpy cup that my wife gave me. A little bit of a curmudgeon in the morning, but we're both that way. We both grunt at each other until we've had our first cup of coffee. But you're talking the pour over, the French press, the percolator, the K cups. I'm not a huge fan of the K cups, largely because I don't like the waste that it produces, and I also don't think it produces that great of a cup of coffee. Honestly,
yes, thank you. I agree.
So if I can get it in me, and honestly, I love the taste of coffee, but not to be disparaging, I don't understand the people that are like, "Oh, I'm drinking decaf." Why?
Thank you.
Why?
Thank you.
I just it's not a concept that my mind is able to to connect around. The earliest time that I can probably identify that I began drinking coffee was maybe 12 or 13.
Okay. Yeah.
Not to the level that I'm doing now. And largely it was I'd come home from school, and like I said, my grandfather worked the night shift, and it was an opportunity to kind of connect with him. And he'd be kind of getting ready and going for the day, and he'd pour himself a cup of coffee, and he'd fill his big thermos. And, I kind of got like the spillover, like how like when you pour a cup in a thermos, you may not just have enough left over. Mm-hmm. So I probably wasn't getting like a full on cup of coffee back then. My grandmother was a waitress in Plymouth, Mass for a number of years. One of my kind of fondest memories, of her in that role back then was going into a place called the Mug-a-Muffin and getting a mug. And, and that's where like I began to learn the value of a nice heavy weighted mug. One of my favorite places to get coffee today because of that experience is Gus's. They have that same kind of like nice weight. I know
what you're talking about. Yeah.
And the waitresses are fantastic because they're always topping off your coffee. Like, you're getting like 3 sips in. And it's like, need a refresh? Yes.
Need to heat it up? Yep.
And yeah, so like I said, I could drink it all day long. I'm not a fan of some of the more acidic coffees. But yeah, I'll try it all.
When's your first cup? Upon waking, I'm assuming.
Usually within probably about half hour of getting up in the morning. I'm not as good as I used to be about brewing my own first cup of coffee. I've kind of slacked, to be honest, just because I'm trying to get going in the morning, and I like. And this really kind of came from the role as town supervisor. I go to Dunkin' Donuts pretty much every day. And like I said, I don't have many vices, and I don't spend a lot of money on stuff, and that's the one area. And one of the reasons that I like going to Dunkin' Donuts is there's some of the regulars, right, mm-hmm. that you bump into. There's a couple of guys from the veteran groups and Honor Flight, and a number of these guys and gals as well that I interact with. So I think it makes me a more responsible human being in the morning because I know I'm dependent on someone giving me a good cup of coffee.
Well, you also told me too. At least your first cup of coffee, you never go through the drive-through. You always go in.
Yeah, I always go in.
Yeah, and
unless I have a meeting, mm-hmm. I go in, and it kind of flips the switch into, okay, you're on. You need to act as a human being.
Well, and probably for you, it's good. It's good. Market research, I guess, because you get to go in and, like I said, you're going in to see people that mm-hmm. are going to talk to you, and it's good to kind of keep the pulse on, meeting people. But the one thing I find, I started drinking coffee regularly, meaning probably every morning, I think when I was 16, and it had to do with, we would start off by going every Sunday after church. We would go to the Shazy Homestead for breakfast without fail every Sunday. My grandparents would go, and my grandpa always drank coffee. My grandma would drink coffee. My mom would drink coffee. And it wasn't until I started to get a little bit older that it was like, can I try it? I want to try it. I want to get a cup of coffee. So I remember my grandfather, as I was, and he didn't do this his whole life, so this was later on in life, but I got a cup of coffee, and he tells me as I'm putting cream in, he goes, don't put sugar in it. It will kill you. He told me that when I was, I think 14 was when I first had my first like cup of coffee. And to this day, I've never put sugar in my coffee. And then what happened was at 16, I started getting it regularly, meaning I'd get it on Sundays every time I go. And now it progressed. High school, I'd get it every day. College, 100%. And now it's just like multiple every day. But I find there's a couple things that I love the taste of coffee. I don't know if I really necessarily need now as a parent, I need it more. I do need it for the caffeine a little bit. But the couple things I like about coffee is, one, I love the taste of coffee. It's kind of like, to me, it's like a comfort thing. Mm-hmm. Like just having a cup of coffee there, whether it's driving in the car, passing time while I'm doing stuff, or just relaxing. Some of my favorite moments, and I don't get to do this too often, is typically on a weekend, if I have some time, I will wake up early. I'll try to wake up still early on the weekends before people get up, brew a pot of coffee, sit down and read and drink coffee. It's just a calming, like relaxation kind of thing. But I think the best part about coffee is it is very much a conversational tool, meaning like the amount of time that I would much rather, you can ask me to breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. If you ask me to go drink coffee with you, that is my most fun, because you don't have to worry about anything else. You get a cup of coffee and you can just talk. Yep. And I think there's something to be said about, it takes people in a crazy busy lifestyle to sit down with a nice hot mug and just converse over coffee. It's such a pure, simple act or thing that you can do, but I don't know why I love that so much, but I just love sitting down and talking to people while we're both sipping on coffee.
Did you know there's a psychology, about sharing a cup of coffee with people, that when people hold the mug or the cup or the vessel, however you want to call it, with warm coffee, and people have a conversation exchange, that they're more likely to build a bond with one another, and they're more likely to share a little bit deeper. And the reason that is the way the psychology works is the warmth from the cup gets transmitted to your hands, and that kind of is absorbed into your being. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when you see some of these interviews that they do on TV, the reason that they've given somebody a mug or a cup of coffee is the kind of muscle memory of that feeling that you get when you hold a mug. And there really is something behind that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I guess, like I said, just through experience, like that's one of my favorite things to do is, like, usually if I want to meet with somebody, like if it depends on the situation, but like, hey, let's go to Starbucks, or come, like, again, I like people coming here. We have a Keurig just for convenience purposes. I'm not a Keurig fan. Like I'm looking at I would like to get like an actual pot that I could make. But the other thing the other day is I got someone on kind of a goose chase for me, but Champy's, like the little convenience store down by Weed Street.
Yeah.
They have a cold brew dispenser.
Oh, nice.
So if you go in there, and it's not bad cold brew, and it's probably like to be honest, the cheapest cold brew in town. You go up, you pull the tap, and you have black and you have one with cream in it.
Yeah. I
want to get one at the office, so I want to get a cold brew dispenser. Because right now I'm on like a cold brew kick just because of the heat. But I want to get one where at all times of the day, and I kind of look at it as, one, it's going to save me time, and it's going to save me, I don't know if it'd save me money. It might be more expensive, but it would definitely save me time, because I wouldn't have to worry about going and driving there.
Yeah.
I can just run out, grab it, or on my way passing through to go out on an appointment, I can just pour cold brew.
Love it.
So I got to find out, because I think you can get the machine they have for free, but you have to hit a certain amount of coffee per month that you have to order, and I think it ends up being something crazy. We're at the point where you might be able to do it, maybe. I would be nowhere close, and I've even talked about getting it and just like telling people, like, if you want cold brew, just walk into our office, bring whatever you want, pour whatever you want, and head out.
I'll tell you right now, in the meantime, get a French press.
I have one at my house, yes.
I mean...
You mean to make cold brew?
Either or. I mean, I have a French press at the office that I use, because if I want something a little bit stronger and I've, got the time, and you can even use the Keurig for the hot water, and then just put that in. I'll set it, forget it, go to a meeting, or do some, go check the mail, things like that. 15 minutes, put it down, and yeah.
Do you know how to make cold brew with that?
Yep.
So I was actually going to do that tonight because that's something. Because most of the mornings I get up and I'm out the door within 5 minutes. Because usually, like, I try in the morning, I try to go to the gym early, so I wake up at 5. I'm usually out the door by 5:50. Well, my alarm goes off at 5. I hit the snooze. I'm up at 5:09. I'm out the door by 5:15. So about a 6-minute. I'm one, like, I pack everything the night before, so literally I go in, change, and I literally walk out the door. So I haven't been making coffee. That's why weekends are like my thing, where I can sit down. I even like roasting my own coffee. I have a personal roaster. Have you ever roasted your own coffee and had it?
That I have not done.
So the one thing about that, and people that have listened to this know I've talked about this a bunch, but if you I have basically a personal size roaster. You roast the beans up, you grind the beans, and then you brew coffee like that. It is the best tasting coffee, because the rule of thumb that I was told from a roaster when I bought the beans, unroasted beans look like little peanuts.
Yeah.
So they're very, very similar in color, very similar in size and texture. What happens is once you heat up the bean, whatever it does, it emits the gases or whatever, and it kind of blows up into that typical commercial bean that you see in a Dunkin' Donuts commercial, whatever, that whole bean. So what they said is that a cup of ground coffee is good for 2 weeks before it kind of starts losing its flavor or the power of its flavor. Whole beans last 2 months, and non-roasted beans last 2 years. And so it's kind of cool. Like, you can buy it and most places around here you either buy it online or you can go to Burlington to oh my God, it's on Church Street. I always forget the name of it. Whatever. You go to this place on Church Street. It's a little shop. It'll come to me before before this is done. Somebody's probably listening, like, screaming in the phone, the microphone. But that you can buy it there. But if you can try that, it's really cool to roast your own coffee. So I'm not good with the espresso. I got to work on doing the espresso things. And I was actually told by a local guy that he has this Japanese branded machine that brings coffee, but what happens is it heats the coffee up much hotter than like a Mr. Coffee thing.
Yep.
And I want to say it's not boiling, because boiling's what, 212 degrees?
I think so.
So I think it's just below that. I think it's like 200 or something. And the reason why the better coffee shops have a stronger roast is because a lot of it has to do with the heat at which they roast, or which they have the water filtered through. So I'm looking at getting one of those. Now, it is fairly expensive. It's not like going to buy like a $30 machine at Target or something. But it goes into like one of those double insulated stainless steel, and it keeps it. And that's the other thing. It doesn't heat from the bottom. You pour it in, and it self-regulates like a French press. It self-heats itself. And he said it's the best way to roast or to have coffee. So I'm looking at getting one of those, most likely here, that I can, put whatever the water is, and it self heats it up and goes through that way. So, okay, back to we can go on a coffee. This whole podcast could have been coffee, to be honest. How much? So throughout the day, you said you drink, when you say pots of coffee, that's not an exaggeration.
It honestly can be pots of coffee. I mean, really, it has to do with if I can get it in me. You know what I mean? Like,
do you drink water throughout the day?
I drink a lot of seltzer water.
Yeah, I'm the same.
That's probably my bigger thing. I do not drink enough water as to what I should.
Do you get headaches from the coffee? I get more like dehydration headaches.
Yeah, from time to time, but it's kind of an ongoing thing.
The thing is, iced coffee, I never get. I don't know if it's because of the ice maybe melting throughout, but I never get like a dehydration from iced coffee. It's hot coffee that usually, after a certain amount, I'm kind of like, okay, I gotta.
Even in the hottest days, my preference would be to have a hot coffee, though. Like, I'm not actually a huge cold brew iced coffee fan. Mm-hmm. Like I was saying on the way back, I'll probably get another hot cup of coffee. I got some paperwork that I need to do tonight. But I can drink coffee. So when I used to work at the college, I was the advisor for student government, just to put it in perspective. And I would go back to the campus, and the meeting would start at 10:15 at night. Okay? So I often was not home until like 1:30. And I would have a cup of coffee with me around 10 o'clock, and I could go home and go to sleep. Like I'm just very fortunate right now still that I can drink a cup of coffee 20 minutes before going to bed, and
I'm very much the same. One of my absolute favorite things to do is after, when you go out to, like, if you go out to dinner with people and stuff like that, when most people are getting dessert, my favorite thing is to get a cup of coffee at the end of a meal when I go out. So if I go, my favorite place is Latitude, because they actually have the individual French presses, Latitude 44. But, Iris's, Anthony's, any place that would serve coffee at the end of a meal, I get more excited for that. And I have a couple friends that now have kind of got on that kick. So if we all go out to dinner on a big table, I start seeing other people start ordering coffee. But the same thing, like it'd be 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, and we're finishing up the meal, and I will get a cup of coffee. It's kind of like a settler a little bit, even though I don't know if it settles my stomach, but it's just kind of that comfort thing. And I'll go home and go to bed.
Do you like Irish coffee?
I mean, I will drink it, yes. But if I have to, I mean, if someone was pulling my arm, But I don't put a lot of stuff in my coffee, like even coffee, like the stuff at Starbucks. If I go to Starbucks and I'm more of a Starbucks guy than Dunkin'. I just find that I like the stronger taste of it. But I'm getting black coffee, or I'm getting an Americano, or I'm getting cold brew, or I'm getting 90% of the time it's black. And my indulgence, I guess, with coffee is that I love heavy cream in coffee.
Okay.
So if you take any of the, coffee, cold brew, or Americano, which Americano is just basically hot water over an espresso, I will get that with heavy cream, and that is my absolute favorite. 'Cause I don't do it every day. That's more of like maybe on vacation, or maybe kind of like a random weekend thing. I'll get it just as, kind of a treat. But man, it is good. It is like, I don't know. For some reason, it's like we went back to that. It's like that comfort, definite enjoyment factor, but coffee's like a powerful little tool, drug, whatever you want to call it, in a good way.
Oh, it is. It's funny you say the thing about your grandfather and the sugar. My grandfather always taught me, learn to drink your coffee black. And then the statement was like, anything else is cream in the coffee type thing. And so I can definitely drink coffee black. I like some of the flavors and so on and so forth. I don't put cream or milk in it. I've been putting almond milk in the iced coffees lately, just to kind of cut it. But the one company that I buy the whole beans from is Tim Hortons. I love Tim Hortons coffee.
Do you go to the one on campus?
No, I order direct from the company.
Okay.
And I actually have some friends. I actually worked with, they have a volunteer arm. It's called the Children's Foundation. And I had an opportunity to bring some students up to Canada to their camps twice. And we did some volunteerism and made some connections. So I buy the beans wholesale from them. But I find that they're one step up from Dunkin' Donuts, and they're one down from Starbucks. They're not as acidic, but they're still as strong. So I'm not a Starbucks guy.
No, Tim Hortons is very good. The two right now that I'm roasting at the house, or did I say roasting? But the ones that I have like whole beans from is Aaron's and his son's company, Acceptance Coffee, which it's phenomenal.
Love it.
And that's another one that I actually saw Ace this past weekend, and I love the story behind that, and the mission statement of that company. I think we talked about it before, is phenomenal. And I'm kind of a big. I mean, we got the mugs here. I usually have a bag, lying around somewhere. More like I've had podcasts where we've done the video and I've had his stuff out. I got a shirt and all this, but and besides the story behind it, which is phenomenal, the coffee's really good too. So, and then this other place called Park Brothers, which is a company over in Potsdam area.
Okay,
and it's a local company. Their social media account is very good. It's very professionally done, but the coffee's phenomenal. And the girl that works with me, I don't know if you've met Ellie yet, and she was at the forum, but next time I'll introduce you to her. She used to work there back in the day, and she got me hooked on it. So she bought me a bag when she went out and visited family back kind of a little bit more Western New York, and that one's very good too. So I try to kind of with like, I guess, the local matters theme, I try to get the local roasters. Vermont Coffee Company too. They sell it at Hannaford's by the bag, but They have some really good whole bean coffee too.
I'm also a huge fan of Stewart's coffee. I think is great.
That's what I kind of grew up drinking.
Yeah, I love Stewart's coffee. If I'm traveling around the country and I'm looking for a quick cup of coffee, I mean McDonald's, Newman's, Newman's
bad.
Own or whatever it is,
Yep.
is a pretty good cup of coffee for the value of it and stuff like that.
I was going to say for $1 or whatever they sell it
Yeah,
for.
absolutely.
It's probably the best thing going. That one, yeah, for sure. And what was the one you said right before McDonald's?
Stewart's?
Yeah, Stewart's. So when I was growing up, like in Shazy, we had nothing but Stewart's coffee. Like you weren't getting Dunkin' Donuts unless you drove to Plattsburgh or I think Champlain. So that would be, I still get Stewart's coffee more for nostalgia.
Yep.
Like it's still, I like it, but there's times I just like, I just really want to get a Stewart's coffee today because for some reason that's kind of what I grew up drinking in high school and in college.
Have you ever been to a Wawa's?
Yes.
Wawa's
down in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I mean, that's another, I mean, like we said, we could go on for hours.
Yes. Yeah. We'll cut the coffee talk, but the Wawa's just in general is a legit store.
Yes, it is.
If anybody's been to a Wawa, it's kind of like it's not like a Wegmans. A Wegmans is on steroids, but a Wawa's take like a convenience store and put that on steroids. There's a lot of selection there. You could pretty much grocery shop at Wawa's. So Mike, I want to get you out of here because I want you to get some more coffee and do your paperwork. But three things. I'm going to ask you three quick questions. You can answer these as short or long as you want. But what is the coolest moment that you've had since being supervisor? So in the last 4 years, what's kind of it could be, I guess I'm just going to leave it as the coolest moment. You can define coolest for us.
Wow. Great question.
It's kind of a simple question. Not too elaborate, but
yeah, it's almost too tough because there's too many categories. But I'll kind of lay the net in a very generic experience. There's been some opportunities to engage in some really unique conversations with some people that would have never occurred if I just wasn't in the role. And I'm not talking about members of Congress. I'm not talking about governors or elected officials. Just because when you're the town supervisor, a lot of times people will tap me on the shoulder and engage in a conversation. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they're not about a specific issue or concern. It's just, more people know me, mm-hmm. than I know sometimes people in the community just because you're in the newspaper, on the news or whatever. And I've had some really cool conversations and pretty transformational.
Cool. And second one is, what is, I guess I'll put this again as kind of a very broad term. What is the coolest person that you've met because of the role? And now I'm assuming politician, but this could be something else. I mean, so what is kind of like maybe a person that you met, they were like, that was really cool to meet that person.
Coolest person.
I wasn't sure. I was thinking someone would just jump out at definitely this person.
They're really good questions. I think part of it is, I've been really fortunate to have a number of those interactions where it's just been like, kind of, there's just the wow factor. It's in the sense of having some of those conversations. Something that probably quickly that comes to mind are some of the I think it was the general consulate for Canada was in the region, and being able to have that exchange with somebody that is from another country, but talking about politics, talking about the cross-border, it was just a really neat interaction. Brief, but just really neat.
Okay, perfect. And the third thing, we're going to end here. Give us an ending quote. Could be your favorite quote. Could be something that just popped up the other day. Give us something that we can sign off with.
What have you learned today?
There we go. All right. So, Mike, I appreciate you coming on, especially on a Friday evening. This was actually very fun. So I've always I haven't known you I guess, too long or too well, but I admire what you've been able to do, and I think you're one of the people that is leading us forward and fighting the good fight. And like I said, if anybody, like I said, can listen to this, support Mike and the things they do, I think you are a very important figure going forward in Plattsburgh's, I guess, current history. So again, thanks for all that you do, and again, thanks for coming on. This was fun.
Appreciate the time. Let's have coffee soon.
Awesome. All right, and so for episode 38, that is Michael Cashman and Gaelan. So we will see you all next week. All right, take care. Thanks for listening to the Gaelan Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Gaelan Trombley, on Instagram at Gaelan Trombley, and on YouTube at Gaelan Trombley. The spelling, GaelanTrombley.